Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Also, you can request any novel so I can turn into audiobooks. Check out our Patreon for more details.
101 Era Division, Mental Power Transforms Again, Middle Era Level. Charles' eyes widened in surprise when he saw the author of Lost Age. He never would have imagined that this book was written by his old friend, Dak. Based on the publication date, this should have been a work from Dak's youth. Well, I'll be, Dak, you terrorist, you were actually a cultured person in your youth and even published a book. Books included in the Hogwarts restricted section weren't necessarily all dangerous, but they were definitely not the kind of boring, run-of-the-mill stuff. Coupled with Deep Blue's prompt that it had obtained material about the history of the wizarding world from this book, Charles' interest was piqued, and he seriously opened the book and began to read. In this book, Dak's writing style and narrative tone were unexpectedly clear and meticulous, completely unlike the madness Charles had seen in him. Dak used ample historical data to propose a new periodization of the wizarding world's history. He divided the entire history of the wizarding world, from near to far, into the recent era, middle era, ancient era, and remote era. The recent era was defined as the period from the complete end of the Religious Inquisition and the establishment of international wizarding organizations to the present day. The most significant marker of the Middle Era was the establishment of Europe's three great magic schools, including Hogwarts, and the activities of their many founders. It was an epic era. Countless exceptionally talented wizards rose during that time. Subjects like transfiguration, potions, and alchemy in the recent era all began their formal enlightenment in the Middle Era, laying the foundation for today. If the Middle Era was a stirring epic, then tracing back further, the Ancient Era was a bizarre and fantastical mythology. Whether it was Merlin, or the Olympian gods from Greek mythology, or Sumerian mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology, those bizarre mythologies still reveal the glory of the Ancient Era and the lingering ignorance and bloodshed, barbarity and cruelty. As for the Remote Era, which predates the Ancient Era, Dak asserted that such an era existed. That era was much, much earlier than the mythical Ancient Era. That era did not belong to humans, nor to the gods and heroes of the Ancient Era. The world belonged to some older, unspeakable existences. Dak referred to them in the book as the Ancient Ones, the Great Old Ones. They once occupied the sky, the land, the sea, the stars, and the void, but for special reasons, the Great Old Ones all fell into slumber. When the last Great Old One and their kin fell into a long sleep, the Remote Era ended, and the world entered the Ancient Era. Charles looked at Dak's passionate and unrestrained display of talent in the field of history, feeling a bit strange. Was this meticulous writing style really from the same person as the Dak he had seen? However, Charles wasn't particularly interested in history. What attracted his attention was another point Dak mentioned in the book: the magic of wizards, gods, or demigod heroes showed a highly close connection with the era. Dak believed that the older the era, the higher the magic intensity of the special existences of that era, and even the magical items created possessed incredibly high magic intensity. For example, the gods in the Ancient Era mythology might not even need spells. Relying on their own ancient magic, they could shake the universe and cause thunder, lightning, wind, and rain. The artifacts in their hands, without needing intricate carving, possessed magic that could shake the heavens. Therefore, the Ancient Era belonged to the gods and their descendants, as well as those fierce monsters that could rival the gods. Although wizards had already appeared, they were not the protagonists of the era. But as time passed, the magic intensity of the Ancient Era slowly declined. When it dropped to a certain level, the gods in mythology could no longer perform miracles and fell from their pedestals. They even fought each other to seize the remaining sources of magic, leading to the twilight of the gods. But even the survivors among the gods, as time passed and their magic further declined, could no longer exist in the world. Their divine bodies collapsed, their divine kingdoms shattered, the glory of mythology faded, wizards became the protagonists of the era, and the Middle Era arrived. The wizards who had just appeared in history could be said to be incredibly crude in their skills compared to today. But because the beginning of the Middle Era was not far from the Ancient Era, the magic still maintained a terrifying intensity compared to today. A casual spell from a wizard back then possessed power that most wizards today could never achieve in their lifetime. At that time, the Deathly Hallows, which are still circulated as fairy tales in the wizarding world today, were also born. Magical items of that intensity simply cannot be created now. This is not a matter of technique or knowledge, but because today's magic is not ancient enough, which also means it is not strong enough to support magic of this intensity. The closer to modern times, the higher the precision of magic-related disciplines, but the magic intensity shows an obvious decline with the era. This is a rule proposed by Dak. The only exception is the past 100 years since the recent era. After the magic intensity continuously weakened and the deeds of those powerful wizards and legends were gradually no longer believed, like a dying ember flaring up, the decline in the wizarding world's magic intensity began to slow down and even started to rise against the trend. Even in the past 100 years, among a group of recent-era wizards who should have continued to be weak, several exceptionally talented individuals with magic intensity comparable to Middle-era wizards appeared. Such powerful magic, combined with the increasingly precise and advanced knowledge of magic disciplines today, made the combat power of these few wizards extremely astonishing, enough to rival the top wizards of the Middle Era. Regarding this phenomenon, Dak also provided a separate explanation, linking it to the religious inquisition of the Middle Era. Against the backdrop of that fanatical, insane, and bloody era, the Hogwarts four founders and the founders of several other magic schools emerged out of nowhere, incredibly. This was also accompanied by a surge of many excellent wizards whose strength performance far exceeded that of wizards from the previous or subsequent decades, as if they were products of a specific period, spurred by some inexplicable force, favored by the era. Regarding this, Dak wrote down his speculation. I don't think it was just the religious inquisition, those ignorant mortals, who could push wizards to that extent. Based on the strength of the four founders recorded, they could easily wipe out an army. If these giant-level wizards had united at that time, their power would have completely overwhelmed the Muggle army. But they were forced to the point of building shelters and leaving behind their legacy, which means they were in a bitter struggle at the time, deeply entrenched in a desperate situation. This was definitely not done by Muggles during the religious inquisition. At that time, many places recorded special astronomical phenomena, and the constellations underwent special changes. I believe that what threatened the founders was the combined product of the fanatical and frenzied atmosphere on the ground and the special astronomical phenomena. In the past 100 years of the recent era, the successive births of Grindelwald, Dumbledore, and Voldemort, how similar are they to the births of the four founders and other wizards in the Middle Era? The celestial phenomena are also gradually changing, and the past dangers may return. I believe it is related to the lost remote era. The sleeping great old ones may be about to awaken. I will continue to pursue the Lost Age and explore the deepest secrets of the wizarding world. This book, The Lost Age, will be the first chapter of my academic magnum opus. Charles flipped through the entire book and unexpectedly found a review in the blank space at the back. It was from Bathilda, the author of Magical History. In her review, Bathilda directly accused Dak of being heretical, stating that all his claims about the remote era were mere speculation with no historical facts to support them, completely delusional. However, she noted that his research on other eras was detailed and well documented, which was quite good. Bathilda hoped that Dak would return to the right track later and not get lost in bizarre fantasies, suggesting he might achieve greater success in the field of magical history. After reading this, a thoughtful expression appeared in Charles' eyes. Were the things Dak said truly delusional? At least from the text, Charles couldn't see any madness in Dak at that time. And now, Dak had successfully entered the Dream Relay, which proved that he had indeed found the ruins of the remote era and even become a part of it. Coupled with Dak's shouts that the era of the Ancient Ones was about to return, the credibility of the words he left in the book undoubtedly soared. The remote era is returning? Charles' heart sank slightly. According to Dak, this was a much greater disaster than anything involving Grindelwald or Voldemort. In fact, the birth of these individuals was itself a resistance to the return of the remote era. However, after thinking about it, Charles was helpless. He was currently feeling frustrated about not being able to enter the Dream Relay and not being able to gnaw on ice reefs and seawater. Stopping the return of the remote era was too distant a matter for him at the moment. However, the periodization method proposed by Dak in the book gave Charles a clearer classification of the strength of wizards in the wizarding world. Currently, the vast majority of wizards possessed magic from the recent era. Even top wizards like Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick had not escaped this level, merely reaching the peak within the recent era. But Dumbledore was an anomaly in this current recent era. His magical power rivaled the peak of the Middle Era. If one also considered the more refined and advanced magic from the recent era that Dumbledore had mastered, Dumbledore would be terrifyingly strong even in the Middle Era. It was possible that the Hogwarts four founders would not be his match. Grindelwald and Voldemort were likely at this level as well. As for Charles, his magical power was still at the recent era level, but he had not yet reached the peak of the recent era. After all, his age was a factor, and even with the feedback from the ancient dragon form, he had not yet reached his full potential. His mental strength, however, was higher. Due to 4 deductions of occlumency and the knowledge already stored in his memory palace, Charles' mental power had reached the peak of the recent era. Looking across the recent era, there were few wizards who could compare with him in terms of mental power. With decent magical power and peak recent era mental strength, especially the various powerful spells he had mastered, the combined effect elevated Charles' strength beyond the recent era, creating a qualitative difference compared to other wizards today, entering the Middle Era level. However, he was still far from the peak Middle Era level of Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and peak Voldemort. Putting down the Lost Age, Charles let out a light breath. According to Dak's final words, this book seemed to be only his early work. Perhaps he could find Dak's later discussions on the remote era. If so, he might be one step closer to the true history of the wizarding world. Thoughts flickered in his mind, but Charles quickly suppressed them. The occlumency after 4 deductions was enough for Charles to remain calm even when faced with information that overturned common sense. No matter how many secrets he knew, without corresponding strength, they were merely topics of conversation. This information could only be transformed into genuine benefits when he was strong enough. At this moment, Charles glanced at his total deduction points and couldn't help but frown. Before coming to Hogwarts, he had frantically plundered in the Dreamlight. He had thought these points would last at least a semester, but plans couldn't keep up with changes. After coming to Hogwarts, he used them up too quickly, simply spending more than he earned. Of the more than 30 million points, less than 10 million remained. But there were still many places where points were needed. Not to mention the subsequent deductions of occlumency, just speed reading various books to increase mental strength required Charles to constantly invest points to save time. Also, dragon language magic hadn't been improved for a long time. If the plan went smoothly, Charles would gain the ability to transform into Fluffy and even a Paradise Phoenix in a while. Neither of these was inferior to the ancient dragon, and the points required would naturally not be small. Charles sighed. Having just caused such a commotion, I'm afraid both Dumbledore and Voldemort are paying extra attention to me. Now isn't the right time to go to the room of requirement and eat the diadem. He licked his lips. Bear with it, just bear with it a little longer. The trip to the Forbidden Forest should yield quite a bit. Just that group of acromantulas alone can provide a good amount of points, and there are various magical creatures deeper inside, unicorns, griffins. Just thinking about it made Charles' mouth start to water. After the Forbidden Forest trip, when Dumbledore and Voldemort's attention on me decreases, I'll go eat the diadem. The plan to breed various magical creatures and plants can also begin. As for now, forget it, I'll just have to make do for a bit. Fluffy, here I come. Soon, Charles was back inside the trapdoor at the end of the 4th-floor corridor. In the past 2 or 3 days, Fluffy the three-headed dog's injuries had long since healed, and its previous ferocity had completely returned. Hearing the creak of the trapdoor opening, Fluffy immediately let out a terrifying roar. But the next moment, when Charles dispelled the disillusionment charm and appeared before Fluffy, the fierceness on Fluffy's 3 heads gradually turned into confusion, and then all at once became terror. It would never forget in its dreams the last time Charles forcibly sterilized it. This little wizard was simply not human. This time Charles came again, and Fluffy could clearly smell from him that Charles had become stronger. Compared to the last time he came, he wasn't just a little bit stronger. Fluffy's 3 heads quickly started conferring. The middle head recovered from its terror and let out a series of threatening growls. We are 3-headed dogs, inheriting ancient bloodlines. How can we let a little wizard do such a humiliating thing to us? Bite him, kill him. But the other 2 heads just pouted. You go if you want, I'm not going anyway. Keep your voice down, don't let this little devil hear you. Forget it, we don't seem to be able to beat him anyway. Isn't it just getting a cut? It'll grow back anyway, let's just bear with it. Before Charles could even make a move, the 3 heads started arguing amongst themselves with howls, making Charles' head buzz. Enough. Whoever keeps barking like a dog, I'm not just here to sterilize today, I'll chop off your dog heads too. With Charles' threatening whisper and the powerful magic bursting from the tip of his mithril wand, Fluffy's 3 heads simultaneously fell into terror. The next moment, all three heads showed a fawning expression. Fluffy the three-headed dog voluntarily turned around and spread its hind legs. Which is worse, getting the small head chopped off or the big head? The three-headed dog could tell the difference. As for dignity, what's that? We three-headed dogs don't care for that stuff. A few minutes later, Charles, satisfied, carried the fresh three-headed dog ingredients to the Hufflepuff small kitchen. After downing a pot of incredibly nourishing three-headed dog broth, over 60,000 deduction points were credited. Then he went to the entrance of the common room and knocked out a tune of blue and white porcelain on the door knocker, intoxicatedly swallowing the gushing magical vinegar, gaining nearly 100,000 points. Coming to Hufflepuff was really the right choice. I don't have to worry about points in the days before going to the Forbidden Forest. I hope the materials in the Forbidden Forest don't disappoint me. In the following days, Charles repeated this monotonous life. Part of the time was spent in his mental world, simulating and deducing on his own, improving his combat ability and increasing his proficiency with ordinary spells. Most of the time was spent in the restricted section, constantly grinding for materials and filling his memory palace with knowledge. His free time was either spent playing with Fluffy or playing music at the entrance of the Hufflepuff common room to make up for the deficit in deduction points. However, all of this appeared as a different scene in the eyes of those who were paying attention. Dumbledore monitored Charles' movements every day and was somewhat surprised to see Charles genuinely and honestly reading those miscellaneous books in the restricted section that were of little help to his strength. He had originally felt a faint unease, which had kept him watching Charles. Now it seemed he might have been overthinking things. It seems that while Charles Evans is a genius, he is still just a child who likes to solve these complex problems and read miscellaneous books to show off his abilities. Dumbledore breathed a sigh of relief. If Charles had continued his relentless pursuit of strength, he would have been quite troubled. It was quite difficult to suppress such a genius. But since Charles had degenerated and neglected his studies for pleasure, things became simple. Books containing practical, advanced magic were precious, but with Dumbledore's connections, he could borrow many of these miscellaneous discussions and strange theories from magic scholars around the world. If that wasn't enough, he could exchange with Beauxbatons and Durmstrang and borrow a portion of their collections in this area. A smile played on Dumbledore's lips. If you like reading these, then take your time. With the collections of the three schools, it's enough for you to read until the end of time. As for going to see Fluffy every day, Dumbledore thought for a moment. Although it's a bit cruel to Fluffy, who tries to get me to send him away every time, if he can distract Charles, suffering a bit is worth it. Besides, the Wizengamot doesn't seem to have passed any laws protecting three-headed dogs, so neutering Fluffy isn't illegal. Let Fluffy suffer a little, I'll bear the future infamy. Anyway, at most, he'll only suffer for another year, about 300 times. He can just endure it. Meanwhile, in the defense against the dark arts professor's office, Quirrell had a crystal ball in front of him, which vaguely showed Charles' movements over the past few days. Quirrell reported respectfully to Voldemort, "Master, Charles has been reading these books in the restricted section for the past few days. I've checked them all. The truly advanced magic books have been moved away, leaving only some miscellaneous magical discussions and strange theories for Charles." As expected, Master. Voldemort also sneered in his mind. So many years have passed, and Dumbledore still hasn't changed much. Besides the love he always talks about, he's unwilling to give any real benefits. He guards advanced magic even more strictly. Even those in his Order of the Phoenix can't learn it from him. Now, for a genius like Charles Evans, he's still doing this? Foolish, utterly foolish. Quirrell quickly said. Then, Master, do you need me to approach Charles and win him over to your side? Voldemort shook his head. People don't cherish things that come too easily. Wait a little longer, leave Charles alone for a while. When he's completely desperate and has no other options, I'll step in. Then I'll definitely be able to pull Charles into my ranks. Even Lucius in Malfoy Manor learned about the changes in the restricted section through his connections as a school governor. He sneered. That old B. Dumbledore finally did something right. How can he let a mudblood like Charles learn the truly advanced magic in the restricted section? This mudblood is already so arrogant. Now what would happen if he learned even more advanced magic? Since Charles had wasted these past few days and his strength hadn't improved because of entering the restricted section, Lucius was completely relieved. Tonight, Charles can't put it off any longer. He has to go into the Forbidden Forest. I will make this mudblood pay for his actions. And at this moment, Charles, who was thought to have been wasting his time these past few days, didn't pay attention to the outside world's opinions at all. Only he knew what kind of changes had happened to him in these past few days. His magical power had indeed stagnated, but in his mental world, the area of his memory palace had expanded several times over compared to before. The resulting increase in mental strength was even beyond Charles' estimation. Now, his temperament was subtly different from a few days ago, as if he possessed a deep accumulation of knowledge, exuding the aura of a scholar, and even his gaze had deepened. This was the change in temperament brought about by a large amount of knowledge, the so-called poetry in books in the belly, grace in the heart. When Charles filled another large book from the restricted section into his memory palace, the quantitative change accumulated over these past few days finally reached its peak. Boom! His mental power, which had reached its peak, suddenly began to climb again, showing a qualitative change. An uncontrollable look of joy appeared in Charles' eyes. This is mental power transforming again. Entering the middle era level. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 102 The Strength to Beat the Two-Faced Man. Journey to the Forbidden Forest. The next moment, the distracting thoughts in Charles' mind vanished. His vast mental power suddenly became more condensed, as clear as crystal. Charles felt his senses expanding continuously, as if he could perceive every speck of dust floating in the air of the library. The last time he practiced legilimency on the Hogwarts Express, Charles felt the world before him was completely new, as if a veil covering it had been lifted. And this time, with his mental power transforming again, Charles' feeling was even stronger, even feeling as if he were looking at the world through a magnifying glass. Especially regarding the fluctuations of magic, he was much more sensitive than before the transformation. For example, multicasting requires capturing magic echoes. With Charles' current mental strength, the efficiency of capturing echoes would be more than double what it was before, further reducing the cost of multicasting. At the same time, the mental burden Charles could bear was several times greater than before the transformation. Before the transformation, when casting powerful spells like the Eternal Blazing Sun spell or the Sunless Sun spell with his mental strength, although he could easily bear it, he could still feel its weight. If he used multicasting, this burden would be even more apparent. And if he were to use storm summons, his strongest dragon language magic currently, in ancient dragon form, he would already feel strained. But now, Charles felt it slightly, and the Eternal Blazing Sun spell was as light as a feather. The feeling was similar to the burden of casting an ordinary spell before, not just a little bit easier. Even a triple cast Eternal Blazing Sun spell would likely not make Charles feel strained. He could cast it 7 or 8 times in one go without a problem. As for dragon language magic, the change was even more obvious. It was no longer like a child wielding an adult's weapon, it was much more effortless and relaxed. While the burden decreased, the power also increased significantly compared to before. A tangible light flickered in Charles' eyes, his gaze deep, like a bottomless abyss, his heart filled with indescribable emotion. Is this the mental power of the medieval era? As expected, it's extraordinary. Surpassing this near-ancient era has greatly improved my strength. Even if my magic power is still in the near-ancient era, relying on medieval-level mental power, plus a host of profound and vast spells, I can directly beat Voldemort, who is currently possessing Quirrell. Even if Voldemort recovers some magic power through unicorn blood later, I am confident I can crush him. Being able to beat the first-year Voldemort within a week of enrollment, I should not have disgraced the transmigrators with this progress, right? Then, a more fervent look appeared in Charles' eyes. According to the casting theories he currently knew, mental strength and magic power were the two major factors determining the power of spells. His mental strength advancing from the near-ancient to the medieval level had increased his strength so much. If his magic power also transformed, his strength would definitely undergo a further qualitative change. By then, even among wizards of the medieval era, Charles would be considered an elite. In this current near-ancient era, besides Dumbledore, Peak Voldemort, and Grindelwald, Charles was the fourth person on the surface. In fact, except for Dumbledore holding the Elder Wand, whom he truly couldn't defeat, when facing the latter two, whose methods were mostly dark magic, Charles, relying on his sacred magic that surpassed this era, the outcome was truly uncertain. However, compared to my mental power, my magic power is much weaker, currently not even comparable to Professor Flitwick or Professor McGonagall. But as long as I complete the remaining 2 Oxio transformations, relying on the feedback from the Fluffy and Paradise Phoenix forms, my magic power should be able to completely transform into the medieval level. I already have Fluffy, I'm just missing a reversion potion for the Fluffy bloodline, so that's not going anywhere. This trip to the Forbidden Forest, besides harvesting deduction points, I should focus on the whereabouts of the Phoenix that Professor Sprout mentioned. Once these are completed, I can venture into the Sea of Dragon Blood in Romania and confront the being in the coffin head-on. Charles was contemplating his next actions in his mind. Just then, a commotion suddenly came from outside the restricted section. "Where is Charles Evans? Come out quickly. Don't think about delaying any longer. Your injuries have long since healed. You should have gone to the Forbidden Forest to receive your punishment long ago." Charles frowned and stepped out of the restricted section, only to see two middle-aged men dressed in human-like clothes but with fleshy faces shouting arrogantly in the library. Madame Pants tried to make them shut up, but they completely ignored her. "We are friends of Mr. Malfoy from the school board, working for the school board. What are you, a librarian? Shut up. Where is Charles Evans? Tell him to come out quickly." When Charles saw these two middle-aged men, he had a strange sense of déjà vu, and then a sudden realization. Draco Malfoy was studying at Hogwarts, accompanied by two followers named Crabbe and Goyle. From the fact that they were together on the Hogwarts Express from the beginning, it could be seen that Crabbe and Goyle were arranged to be Malfoy's followers long ago. The families of these two should have a close relationship with the Malfoy family, respecting Malfoy, which is why they would arrange their heirs to be followers directly by Malfoy's side. The younger ones were like this, and it seemed the older ones were also like this. These two middle-aged men were likely old Crabbe and old Goyle. Their sons worked for young Malfoy, and they worked for Lucius Malfoy. In the library, Madame Pants's face was ashen with anger, but she dared not say anything in front of the school board members. As old Crabbe and old Goyle said, she was just a librarian. In fact, like Filch, Madame Pants was a squib. Although she cherished the magic books in the library immensely, she really didn't have the courage to fight against the school board members. There were also some other students in the library, who were now glaring at old Crabbe and old Goyle. "Why are you so unreasonable? The library belongs to the students of Hogwarts. Even if you are from the school board, you must follow the rules here. Also, show some respect to Charles." Old Crabbe and old Goyle sneered, looking down at the student who had just spoken up for Charles, until his voice gradually fell silent. Their smiles became increasingly contemptuous. "Another Hufflepuff idiot? Since when did Hufflepuff dare to speak so loudly? When we were in school, Hufflepuff was a bunch of cowards, that's something everyone agrees on." Before they finished speaking, as the little Hufflepuff's face turned red, Charles stepped out of the restricted section. With a light tap of his mithril wand, old Crabbe and old Goyle's insulting words about Hufflepuff came to an abrupt halt. Charles calmly looked at the students in the library and Madame Pants, and said indifferently, "You all go out first, I'll have a private chat with these two lackeys from the school board." His gaze swept around. Even without using any magic, with Charles' current mental power, he naturally possessed a convincing aura. The reason Voldemort, Dumbledore, and Grindelwald could so easily gather a team, besides their own ideologies, was also greatly due to the influence and appeal brought by their powerful mental strength. Now, after his mental transformation, Charles also possessed a similar temperament. Madame Pants and the students in the library felt as if they were facing Dumbledore in a trance, and they obeyed involuntarily, leaving the library one by one. Charles waved his wand again, and the library door immediately closed tightly, also accompanied by some protective magic, so that people outside could not hear or see what was happening inside. After doing this, he waved his wand and lifted the silencing spell on old Crabbe and old Goyle. The faces of the two men were now full of shock and anger, as if they hadn't expected Charles to dare to attack them. "Charles Evans, you dare to use a silencing spell on us? Don't you know that you were already supposed to receive punishment in the Forbidden Forest? It seems you haven't learned any lesson at all. We are Mr. Malfoy's men from the school board. Believe it or not, we'll tell Mr. Malfoy and make your punishment even more severe." Old Crabbe even let out a cold laugh. "It's useless for you to spend all day in the restricted section. We've already heard that there's no advanced magic left for you in the restricted section. If you ask me, this is one of the few smart things that old fool Dumbledore has done." He lowered his voice and showed Charles a malicious and contemptuous expression. "A mudblood like you wouldn't even have had the chance to come to Hogwarts to learn magic back in the day. Dirty bloodline, and you still want to learn advanced magic from the restricted section? Sooner or later, a mudblood like you will be driven out of Hogwarts." Charles calmly looked up, staring at old Crabbe in front of him. Although at his current height of 11 years old, he still had to look up at a big guy like old Crabbe. But for some reason, old Crabbe felt as if he was being looked down upon by a giant, and a chilling feeling rose in his heart. Old Goyle, who was standing next to him, felt a chill in his heart as he looked at Charles' calm and unwavering eyes, but he still said loudly, "What? You've already made a mistake, and we're here to tell you to hurry to the Forbidden Forest. Do you still want to fight us? Let me remind you again, we are Mr. Malfoy's men from the school board. If you dare to fight us, you will be directly driven out of Hogwarts tomorrow, and Dumbledore won't be able to protect you." But just at this moment, Charles showed a hint of mockery. "I've seen your sons, they look very unintelligent. I was wondering what was going on, and now it seems I've finally found the source. I know you are Lucius Malfoy's lackeys from the school board, so what? Snape is dead, why can't you two pieces of trash die too?" Old Crabbe and Old Goyle's eyes widened, and they suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. They could feel that Charles was not joking. A killing intent had enveloped them. This feeling was as if death had already swung its scythe. At this moment, they finally understood that Charles didn't care about the rules at all. What about the school board? If you provoked Charles, he wouldn't hesitate for a moment to act. This guy simply didn't care about school rules or the laws of the wizarding world. As if reading their thoughts, Charles grinned. "Don't wrong me in your hearts. I, Charles Evans, am a law-abiding good wizard. However, if the law can't find anything, then it's not illegal, don't you think? For example." Charles casually waved his wand, and an invisible sharp edge swept across the mouths of Old Crabbe and Old Goyle. Two sections of their tongues fell off, and blood gushed out like a fountain. Then, as Old Crabbe and Old Goyle widened their eyes, rolled on the ground, but couldn't even let out a cry of pain, Charles waved his wand again, and a healing spell landed on them. Although he hadn't specifically used Deep Blue to deduce it, Charles had simulated and practiced healing magic many times in his mental space. Coupled with the transformation of his mental power now, the effect of this healing magic was also immediate. The fallen tongues and gushing blood, as if time had reversed, returned to the bodies of Old Crabbe and Old Goyle. Charles showed a satisfied smile. "Completely undetectable, no wounds. Oh, by the way, don't think about things like the trace or the prior incantato. My spells won't leave those traces. So what were you saying just now?" "Sigh, insulting me as a mudblood is fine, it doesn't hurt me much. But you guys, why did you have to drag Hufflepuff into it? I owe Professor Sprout a huge favor, so I have to protect Hufflepuff somehow. Therefore, you have to pay a price for your loose tongues." Charles' expression was indifferent. He waved his wand repeatedly, and then cast healing magic repeatedly. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle's eyes were filled with terror. This empty library had become their torture chamber. They swore that if they were given another chance, even with 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare to be so arrogant toward Charles again, let alone say words insulting Hufflepuff House in front of Charles. Charles looked at the two and asked, "Regret it?" As the two nodded frantically, Charles chuckled softly. "Too late. From Snape's matter, I learned a lesson. As expected, once you make an enemy, you have to deal with all their relatives and friends cleanly. You see, just because I didn't deal with Lucius Malfoy, he kept thinking about revenge and sent you to disgust me. If I had found an opportunity at that time and dealt with the entire Malfoy family cleanly, wouldn't there have been no trouble? I have always been very good at learning from my lessons, so this time, since I've laid hands on you, I will definitely handle things cleanly." Old Crabbe and Old Goyle widened their eyes. "What the hell, this little Hufflepuff is too dark. Why would someone like this be sorted into Hufflepuff? Even Slytherin couldn't produce such a lunatic. That crazy woman Bellatrix Lestrange wasn't this outrageous when she was in school." The two desperately tried to escape, but Charles' mithril wand had already burst out 2 silver-white rays of light, landing on them. It was legilimency. These two fools hadn't even practiced occlumency. Facing Charles' mental magic, they had no possibility of resisting at all. The most subtle secrets of their lives were revealed before Charles, but Charles didn't even have the interest to look. With a wave of his wand, he engraved a command deep in their consciousness. "After you go back, find a quiet place to die in a few days. Don't affect others, understood?" Old Crabbe and Old Goyle's eyes were blank. "Yes. Go back and find a quiet place to die." Then, when Charles' spell was lifted, the two climbed up from the ground, and the blankness in their eyes gradually dissipated. The memory of Charles attacking them earlier, which had made them suffer pain and fear, seemed to have disappeared from their minds, and they couldn't remember it at all. Except for the instinctive fear that appeared when they saw Charles, the two were like a period of time had been cut out, and they continued the previous topic. "Charles Evans, the school board's punishment period for you is up. We are here to inform you that you must go to the Forbidden Forest tonight to receive your punishment, otherwise the school board will pass a resolution tomorrow, and the maximum punishment they can give you is expulsion from Hogwarts." After Charles nodded to indicate that he understood, the two snorted coldly and left the library with their noses in the air. Charles' eyes, however, showed a deep look. It seems Professor Sprout's reminder was indeed correct. Lucius Malfoy seems a bit unwilling to be lonely. That's true. After all, his good friend Snape is dead. It's understandable that he'd be sad and want revenge. Then I'll be kind and send him to reunite with his good friend. I'm also curious to see what kind of setup this noble lord has prepared for me. Immediately, Charles stepped out of the library. Night fell, and darkness enveloped Hogwarts. At the entrance to the Forbidden Forest, Professor Sprout, Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, and others, along with Hagrid, who was responsible for accompanying Charles into the Forbidden Forest, were waiting. Anxious expressions were on their faces, wondering what had happened to Charles since he hadn't appeared yet. Just then, Charles' figure, carrying a bag, appeared before them. "Sorry, I'm a little late. I was mainly preparing some things, but I'm not exactly late, am I?" Professor Sprout breathed a sigh of relief. It was a good thing Charles had come. Otherwise, the school board might have made further difficulties and had to give Charles a more severe punishment. Looking at the bag Charles was carrying, Professor Sprout asked, "What did you bring?" Charles said casually, "Some essentials for wilderness survival. I think they'll be helpful for me in the Forbidden Forest." Professor Sprout's eyes showed approval. What she feared most was Charles being too confident. Although Charles was strong, the Forbidden Forest in the dark was full of dangers. A poisonous snake might be hiding under a single leaf. If he was too careless, an accident could really happen. But seeing how well prepared Charles was, she felt her worries could be put aside. At this moment, Hagrid, holding his hound Fong, said, "It's about time. We should go in." Charles nodded, said goodbye to Professor Sprout, Professor McGonagall, and the others, and followed Hagrid and Fong into the Forbidden Forest. Soon, the tall trees, like those in an uninhabited area, blocked the view in all directions, and it was pitch black everywhere. Except for the lamp Hagrid was carrying, not a single ray of light could be seen. Charles casually cast a Lumos spell, and the soft light immediately illuminated a large area of the forest. Hagrid frowned. "Your Lumos spell is too bright. In the Forbidden Forest, try not to use spells if you don't have to. The smell of magic is very obvious to magical creatures, and they'll follow the spells." A strange smile appeared on Charles' lips, and he didn't respond to Hagrid. Magical creatures coming over? That would be great. Otherwise, wouldn't all the things he had prepared for half a day be wasted? The reason Charles was a little late was that he had gone to the Hufflepuff kitchens and asked the house elves there for a large amount of magical seasonings, including a universal magical sauce created by Hufflepuff. According to the house elves, using this sauce to cook various magical ingredients could stimulate their magic, making the ingredients more flavorful. For Charles, this was equivalent to increasing the points he could get after eating the ingredients. He had brought so many seasonings, pots, and pans. If no magical creatures came over, that would truly be a waste. Hagrid glanced at Charles, who was still doing as he pleased in casting the Lumos spell, his brows furrowed, and his dislike for Charles was undisguised in his eyes. Generally speaking, Hagrid had a good impression of most of the students at Hogwarts, except for Slytherin. But Hagrid really couldn't like Charles because Charles had publicly insulted Dumbledore. Hagrid was absolutely loyal to Dumbledore, and in his eyes, anyone who insulted Dumbledore was a scumbag and a villain. Charles had even drawn the sword of Gryffindor in front of so many people and pointed it at Dumbledore. In Hagrid's eyes, this was much worse than those bad eggs from Slytherin. If Charles weren't still a young wizard, Hagrid would have definitely taught him a lesson. Therefore, after walking for a while and remaining silent, the half-giant Hagrid finally couldn't hold back and said in a booming voice, "You shouldn't have said that about Dumbledore. You should apologize to Dumbledore when you get back. Headmaster Dumbledore is the greatest person in the wizarding world." Charles frowned. "You remind me. I still haven't heard Dumbledore reflect on his dereliction of duty, nor have I heard him apologize for the harm caused to the Hufflepuff students. It seems I need to remind Dumbledore again when I get back. Burying your head in the sand won't solve the problem. As a headmaster from Gryffindor, does he not even have the courage to admit his mistakes?" Hagrid's face instantly flushed red, clearly agitated. "What did you say? I won't allow you to talk about Headmaster Dumbledore like that. You have no idea what Headmaster Dumbledore has done." Charles watched the agitated Hagrid, his brows furrowing even tighter. He took 2 steps back, avoiding the spittle that flew from Hagrid in his excitement. He asked seriously in return, "Then I really want to hear it. What exactly did Dumbledore do that makes you so devoted to him, not allowing the slightest doubt?" Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 103 They are just pawns. Will you hand them over, or shall I take them by force? Hearing Charles' question, Hagrid looked as if he had heard something utterly absurd, forgetting even to be angry. He said loudly, "You ask me how Dumbledore is great? Merlin's beard, isn't that universally acknowledged?" Charles said with interest, "I don't like universally acknowledged statements, because they are often exaggerated and contain elements of misinformation. Just tell me, what do you think is Dumbledore's greatest achievement?" Hagrid said without hesitation, "Dumbledore is the banner of justice. He led the fight against the mysterious person. Everyone knows that the only person the mysterious person fears in the wizarding world is him. Without Dumbledore, there would be no one left in the wizarding world to oppose the mysterious person. Isn't that great? Charles, however, shook his head. I admit that Voldemort is wary of Dumbledore. But I want to ask you, where does it say that Dumbledore led the fight against the mysterious person? I have indeed heard that Dumbledore has a secret society. I think it's called the Order of the Phoenix, right? Hagrid, you should also be a member of the Order of the Phoenix. How many people are in the Order of the Phoenix? Hagrid was stunned for a moment, not expecting to hear the name of the Order of the Phoenix from Charles' mouth. He said proudly, "That's right, I am a member of the Order of the Phoenix. I can't tell you exactly who is in the Order of the Phoenix, but there are at least 10 or so people." Charles nodded, interrupting Hagrid. "So the Order of the Phoenix only has a dozen people from beginning to end. Let's say you have 20 people. You probably don't have various peripheral members like the Death Eaters. After all, according to Dumbledore's style, your funds are probably not much, and you have to bring your own dry rations to fight. How many Death Eaters are there? The core members are similar to yours, but the peripheral members and those dark creatures number at least several hundred. Are you in the Order of the Phoenix so strong that you can take on a dozen or 20 Death Eaters while facing the core Death Eaters?" Hagrid's words paused. This is not the case." Charles chuckled. "Then I want to ask, the people in your Order of the Phoenix can at most deal with such a small number of insignificant Death Eaters. If a large-scale battle occurs, who will fight the Death Eaters?" Hagrid thought for a moment and said with some hesitation, "The Aurors from the Ministry of Magic will also participate in the battle. Their numbers are even greater and they can fight many Death Eaters." Charles nodded, then asked in return, "Then the role of the Order of the Phoenix is at most to contain a small portion of the Death Eaters. The hard battles are still fought by the Aurors from the Ministry of Magic." Did Dumbledore lead the Aurors? Did he hold any position as a director in the Ministry of Magic, or act as the wartime Minister of Magic, or participate in the strategic planning of any large-scale battles? Why does it sound like the fight against the Death Eaters is all the credit of the Order of the Phoenix and Dumbledore? Have you eaten the credit of the Aurors and other resistance organizations? Without waiting for Hagrid to answer, Charles continued to ask. Voldemort made multiple moves during the previous Wizarding War, burning, killing, and looting, with a fearsome reputation, killing so many people that they didn't dare to mention his name. Then I want to ask, what did Dumbledore do? Since he is so powerful, the only person Voldemort fears in the wizarding world, in this chaotic time, Dumbledore should have stepped forward, raised the banner high, and united all resistance forces under his banner. He should have directly taken over as Minister of Magic based on his reputation, led the overall situation, and actively attacked to eliminate the Death Eaters, killing them so that they wouldn't dare to mention his name. But where was he at that time? Why was he still at Hogwarts? Why did we rarely see Dumbledore make a move? The lives of Aurors under the mysterious person are countless. May I ask how many lives of Death Eaters are under Dumbledore? Hagrid was speechless for a moment. Because the young wizards at Hogwarts need Dumbledore's protection. This made Charles laugh even louder. Are you kidding me? The descendants and children of relatives of Death Eaters also attend Hogwarts. Slytherin House is part of Hogwarts. Are they so bored that they would come to Hogwarts to slaughter young wizards before dealing with the Aurors and resistance organizations? If Dumbledore's presence at Hogwarts was to hold the descendants of those Death Eaters in Slytherin House as hostages and deter the Death Eaters into surrendering quickly, that would make sense, but did Dumbledore do that? He doesn't seem to have. In other words, what beneficial impact can his presence at Hogwarts have on the battle against Voldemort and the Death Eaters? Voldemort is running around, killing people everywhere, striking fear into everyone, while Dumbledore, the only person who can contend with Voldemort, spends most of his time at Hogwarts maintaining school order. Is this also considered a huge contribution? Listening to Charles' mockery, Hagrid was trembling with anger. Nonsense, you're talking nonsense. The mysterious person was defeated, and Dumbledore's contribution was indispensable. Charles said lightly, the mysterious person was defeated, and the most direct contribution was made by Harry Potter's family. Was Dumbledore there at the time? No, he wasn't, so what contribution did he make to defeating the mysterious person? Could it be that Dumbledore also gets a share of Harry Potter's credit? Hagrid was a bit speechless. Charles shook his head. So I've always been quite puzzled. How can you Order of the Phoenix members talk as if you've made such great contributions, as if Dumbledore killed so many Death Eaters and defeated Voldemort so many times? You're really good at patting yourselves on the back. Dumbledore's contribution was in boosting morale, providing a spiritual pillar for the Aurors and resistance organizations in the wizarding world. I acknowledge that contribution, but what else is there? If an ordinary Auror had Dumbledore's strength, perhaps he could have done much more. Perhaps he would have taken on the responsibility of leading the wizarding world, instead of having immense power but staying at Hogwarts, not even daring to take on the position of Minister of Magic. Perhaps he would have hated the Death Eaters even more deeply. Wherever there were Death Eaters, he would be there, waving his wand and unleashing golden flames. When encountering difficult enemies, ordinary Aurors wouldn't have to sacrifice their lives, he would step in to resolve it. There would be far fewer casualties in the wizarding world, the Death Eaters' actions would be much more cautious, and the wizarding world wouldn't be filled with despair and fear, to the point where no one dares to mention Voldemort's name even now. Honestly, ask yourself, did Dumbledore do what he should have done with his strength? Or let me rephrase the question, Hagrid, if you had Dumbledore's power and saw your Order of the Phoenix comrades die in battle, what would you do? Hagrid answered subconsciously, of course, I would go eliminate the Death Eaters, go defeat Voldemort. Charles retorted, did Dumbledore do that? Did he actively seek out Voldemort? Did he actively kill Death Eaters? Hagrid was speechless, only managing to say in a muffled voice after a long while, Dumbledore has his own considerations. Some battles belong to us. This made Charles shake his head. So even the final battle that ended Voldemort was a contribution made by Harry Potter as an infant. Where was Dumbledore's battlefield? Alright, I won't repeat how great Dumbledore was during the war. Perhaps Dumbledore's greatness is reflected in the aftermath. I ask you, how much compensation did the Order of the Phoenix comrades who died in battle receive? Hagrid looked as if he had been insulted. Compensation? We didn't fight for that, we fought for peace and justice. Charles said calmly. Then after they died in battle, what did the families they left behind live on? The Order of the Phoenix didn't even show a hint of support. Alright, I can understand that. The Order of the Phoenix is an unofficial, loosely organized group with no source of funding. However, they also made significant contributions to fighting Voldemort. Aurors who sacrificed themselves received compensation and were officially registered with honors, considered to have died in the line of duty. Did Dumbledore fight for the members of the Order of the Phoenix who died in battle? In the official records of the wizarding world, are they recorded as warriors who died fighting Voldemort and the Death Eaters, or as ordinary victims? These are different, aren't they? Oh, still nothing? The great Dumbledore didn't even fight for anything for his fallen comrades? Heh, truly great, truly noble. That's right, it's just like his attitude towards Harry Potter. Hagrid, you must know what kind of life Harry Potter has lived all these years, right? At the mention of this, anger appeared on Hagrid's face, and his voice was choked with emotion. Of course I know. I can't believe Harry Potter's relatives treated him like that. Charles, however, retorted. How else should Harry Potter's relatives have treated him? No matter how they treated him, what right do you have to say anything? From childhood to adulthood, did anyone in the wizarding world take care of him for a single day? Did they buy him a single diaper, a single packet of formula? Did you pay for him to see a doctor for the illnesses he had since he was a child? Don't you know how much it costs to raise a child? Raising Harry Potter healthily, in my opinion, his relatives have already fulfilled their most basic moral obligation and responsibility. On the contrary, you, especially the great Dumbledore you speak of, knowing Harry Potter was there, what did he do? Putting everything else aside, was it that hard to allocate some funds to them? Was it that hard to visit regularly and care about Harry Potter? So, a powerful wizard who slacked off during the war, didn't provide compensation for his comrades after the war, didn't fight for proper honor and reputation for his comrades, and didn't even pay to raise Harry Potter, an orphan, leaving him with a Muggle family for 11 years without a word. Where exactly is the greatness that makes you, Hagrid, question me so devotedly? I really want to hear it clearly. Go ahead, I'm all ears. Hagrid's face turned from red to green and then became completely pale. He really wanted to angrily denounce Charles and say that it was all nonsense. But what Charles said seemed to have no problem, it wasn't fabricated facts. The members of the Order of the Phoenix who died in battle indeed received no compensation, and many of their merits and contributions were not officially recognized by the Ministry of Magic except by the members of the Order of the Phoenix. The difficult life of the Weasley family, Lupin's awkward situation as a werewolf, and his own situation, seemed to have not changed because of the Order of the Phoenix. As for Harry Potter's childhood, that left Hagrid speechless. Only now did he remember that his attitude towards the Dursleys after arriving at their house was indeed very inappropriate. No matter how harsh they were, they had genuinely taken care of Harry Potter for 11 years. Although Hagrid didn't have children, he understood that taking care of children was much harder than taking care of magical creatures. Children get sick, cry, need their diapers changed every few hours, and need to be sent to school and educated. Hagrid hadn't done anything, so he wasn't qualified to criticize the Dursleys. But if he had known that Harry Potter was there, Hagrid swore that he would have done everything in his power to raise Harry healthy and happy. Even if he sold all his possessions, he would regularly send money to the Dursleys, supervise them to buy Harry new clothes and glasses, take Harry out to play, and wouldn't let Harry suffer even a little bit of injustice. If only he had known a little bit of information. Dumbledore didn't tell him, but Dumbledore didn't do anything either. As the headmaster of Hogwarts, dealing with children every day, didn't Dumbledore know that raising children costs money? What was going on with all of this? Hagrid's expression was a little lost and confused as he led Charles deeper into the Forbidden Forest. Before, he had specifically gone to the Acromantulas territory, wanting the Acromantulas to appear before Charles at that time and give Charles a good scare. This way, Charles might repent for insulting Dumbledore. But now, Hagrid's mind was in turmoil, and he no longer had any thought of making Charles repent. He really wanted to push Charles' words out of his mind, but the scenes of the past kept appearing before his eyes. Yes, he was expelled from Hogwarts with his wand broken, and Dumbledore was the only one who was willing to believe him. Later, Dumbledore also found him the job of gamekeeper and accepted him, a half-giant, into the Order of the Phoenix. These were all things that made him grateful to the point of tears. At that time, Dumbledore was not yet the headmaster of Hogwarts, but the Transfiguration Professor, and couldn't clear his name. But later, Dumbledore was a world-renowned headmaster and the chief mugwump of the Wizengamot. He completely had the ability to clear his name. At least, he could have a wand of his own again after so many years, right? And Lupin, he left after the war because there was no position available for him to work. But there were actually many job openings at that time. Many people in the wizarding world died, and everything was waiting to be rebuilt. If Dumbledore was willing to give Lupin a letter of recommendation, willing to be a guarantor, and make public Lupin's heroic deeds against the Order of the Phoenix, perhaps Lupin could have gotten a job and wouldn't have had to go far away. And the Weasley family, Mr. Weasley missed many opportunities at the Ministry of Magic because he was involved in the work of the Order of the Phoenix. If Mr. Weasley had participated in the battles organized by the Ministry of Magic at that time, he could have become a temporary Auror. With his merits in the war, there were many positions available after the war, and his rank would have been at least 2 levels higher than it is now. If Dumbledore was willing to speak up for Mr. Weasley would definitely have been promoted, and his life would have been much better than it is now. At least the Weasley children wouldn't have to wear old clothes in rotation, and wouldn't have to buy everything secondhand and worn out. Every time he saw it, it made Hagrid feel so heartbroken. Originally, all of this could have been changed, as long as Dumbledore said one word, just one word. But there was nothing, absolutely nothing. In a trance, Hagrid felt that they were like pieces on a chessboard, only useful as long as they could play a role. As for their own lives, Dumbledore didn't care at all. Just as Hagrid's mind was in turmoil, Fong, the hound beside him, suddenly let out a roar, bringing Hagrid back to his senses. Under the illumination of Charles' luminosity flicker, in the shadows of the Forbidden Forest around them, some shadowy figures wearing hoods could be seen. There were at least a dozen of them, from all directions, and they had already surrounded Hagrid and Charles. A warning sign instantly surged in Hagrid's heart. This was the Forbidden Forest. What kind of good people could appear here? Either poachers or dark wizards. And when he saw a faint golden light flash through the shadows, Hagrid immediately understood what this formation meant. Lucius Malfoy, I see you. What do you want to do, bringing people to the Forbidden Forest? Lucius, who had exposed himself because of the reflection of his hair, stopped pretending after Hagrid called out his identity. He sneered, walked out of the shadows, his eyes flashing with undisguised malice and killing intent. What do I want to do? Of course, it's judgment. Snape is dead, my son's bones were broken, leaving him with trauma, and all of this is the Mudblood's fault. He did such a thing and wasn't expelled from Hogwarts with his wand broken. Is this fair? I will represent the Malfoy family and personally reclaim justice. Hagrid let out a low roar, throwing the previous argument with Charles to the back of his mind. He gripped the umbrella he was using as a wand. I won't let you succeed. Lucius sneered disdainfully. A half-giant, thick-skinned and tough. If he had a wand in his hand, I might be wary. But with that broken umbrella of yours? Perfect. I've long found your filthy bloodline an eyesore. Today, along with that mudblood, I'll make you disappear forever. He spoke with condescending arrogance, as if he already held Charles and Hagrid's lives in his grasp. Of course, you can try to struggle. I've prepared quite a few things for this moment. Look at these dark wizards from Knockturn Alley. I paid a hefty price to hire them. Every single one is fully armed with dark magic items. I've also prepared several powerful magic items here. If I don't even get to use them, wouldn't all my effort be wasted? I'm looking forward to trying out their power on you." Hearing Lucius's words, a hint of despair flickered in Hagrid's eyes. He suddenly pulled a flare from his pocket, turned to Charles, and instructed, "I'll create an opportunity for you later, don't look back, run. After this signal is sent, Dumbledore and the other professors will be notified soon. You'll be safe once they arrive." Then, Hagrid prepared to shoot the flare into the sky above the Forbidden Forest. Seeing this, Lucius roared, "Don't let him send the signal. I want to properly torment that mudblood, I don't want it to end so quickly." The next moment, the dark wizards from Knockturn Alley raised their wands. A dazzling red light flashed, accompanied by a whispered sound, "Stupefy." Hagrid was hit by a stunning spell. This stunning spell seemed ridiculously powerful. The half-giant's magic resistance was practically non-existent before it. Hagrid instantly lost consciousness, and the flare in his hand dropped to the ground, failing to be sent. Lucius was overjoyed at the sight. "Beautiful stunning spell. Who cast it? I'll give them extra money." However, the dark wizards from Knockturn Alley looked at each other, their eyes filled with confusion. "Did you cast it?" "No, I didn't have time yet. Besides, I can't cast such a powerful stunning spell." "Which big shot has arrived? They're hiding quite well." Just then, Charles' slender figure emerged from beside the fallen Hagrid. He grinned, smiling brightly, his eyes filled with a fervent glow. "The stunning spell was beautiful, wasn't it? Stop looking, I cast it. After all, if Dumbledore came, it wouldn't be convenient for me either. Now, are you going to hand over your magic items yourselves, or do you want me to do it? Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description." 104. How did dark wizards end up like this? The Necronomicon. Charles' voice echoed faintly through the Forbidden Forest. The dark wizards lurking in the shadows around suddenly felt a sense of familiarity in that voice, and an ominous feeling rose in their hearts. "Hey, Lucius." The leading dark wizard questioned Lucius, wanting to know the exact name of the target for this mission. Could it be the person they were thinking of, the one who had become a taboo existence in Knockturn Alley? But before he could speak, Lucius, who had heard Charles' words, first froze, then burst into triumphant laughter. He laughed so intensely that his aristocratic elegance was completely gone, and he almost doubled over. "You. That stunning spell just now was cast by you. Ha ha ha, this is simply the most foolish thing I've ever seen in my life, you idiotic mudblood, you've personally buried your last hope. It seems you still don't understand your current situation. You don't think that because you defeated Snape in Hogwarts Castle, your actual strength is truly greater than his, do you? It was just that Snape was careless, plus many methods couldn't be used in the castle. Watch closely, Charles Evans, this is how dark wizards fight. We, who have experienced war, have methods that a snot-nosed little wizard like you cannot understand." Immediately, Lucius elegantly raised his wand, while holding a crystal skull in his left hand, his eyes filled with coldness. "You want the magical items on me? Then I'll let you see its power." The next moment, Lucius was about to chant a spell and activate the magical item, to let Charles experience what terror was. But at this very instant, he felt a pain in the back of his head, his vision spun, and he fell to the ground. Lucius was completely bewildered. When he came to on the ground, he realized that it was the dark wizards from Knockturn Alley whom he had hired who had taken him down. Lucius's heart instantly sank, and a thought surfaced in his mind. "This is bad. Are they going to double-cross me?" Lucius said urgently. "We've cooperated so many times, was there ever a time I didn't give you satisfactory compensation? You're actually going to attack me? Believe me, friends, it's still not too late to stop now." But before he finished speaking, Lucius saw the dark wizards around him with faces full of fear and anger, staring intently at him. The leading dark wizard even cursed out loud. "Not too late? Not too late, my ass. Lucius Malfoy, is there something wrong with your brain? You said you wanted us to do a very simple commission, is this what you call simple? Why the hell didn't you say the target was Charles Evans? If you had said so earlier, even if our brains were clogged with shit, we wouldn't have come with you. If you want to court death yourself, don't drag us along." Lucius was stunned. "You, what are you talking about? Charles Evans is just a first-year little wizard, you are vicious dark wizards from Knockturn Alley, what are you afraid of him for?" The group of dark wizards were speechless. Vicious? Lucius called them vicious? In front of Charles Evans, this peerless fiend who had robbed the entire Knockturn Alley, threatened to dump feces in front of Borgin and Burks, and used a blood pump on a vampire earl, Lucius called them vicious. Did he have some misunderstanding about these 4 words? The leading dark wizard was so angry he laughed. "Lucius Malfoy, you have no idea what kind of existence you have provoked." Immediately, the group of dark wizards bowed to Charles with faces full of flattery. Lord Charles, we really didn't know it was you. We were all tricked by Lucius, he just said he wanted us to help with a small favor. If we had known it was you, we wouldn't have dared to come even with 10 times the courage. Charles raised his eyebrows, saying with a half-smile, "Is that so? But I just heard that you brought a lot of magical items. If it were an ordinary target, why would you bring so many things? You're fully armed, are you really not here to deal with me?" The dark wizards immediately started wailing and crying. "No, really, my Lord Charles. If I had known I'd run into you, I wouldn't have taken out these magic items I've kept hidden away. This is all I have left." Charles' face suddenly darkened. What do you mean?" The leading dark wizard quickly slapped himself and respectfully took out the magic items he had brought from his pocket. "What we mean is, if we had known we'd run into you, we would have brought more magic items, even if we had to sell everything we owned. Alas, Lord Charles, you have repeatedly looked after us in Nocturne Alley. As a result, when you went to school, we didn't prepare a gift. That was truly wrong. Merlin above, we happened to meet you. These are our back-to-school gifts for you, Lord Charles. Please don't dislike them." At the same time, he glared fiercely at the other dark wizards, the meaning in his eyes very clear. "If you want to live, quickly abandon your wealth and save your life." The other dark wizards also seemed to wake up from a dream and quickly and respectfully took out the magic items from their pockets and handed them to Charles. Yes, Lord Charles, these are the back-to-school gifts we prepared. In our haste, the gifts are humble. Please don't dislike them." Only then did Charles nod with satisfaction and reach out to accept the gifts from these dark wizards. After his mental power transformed again and entered the medieval level, Charles' sensitivity to magic increased significantly. He could feel that the magic contained in these items was truly extraordinary, each one a masterpiece. As expected of the items these Nocturne Alley dark wizards kept hidden away, the deduction points they could provide were probably not a small number. For Charles, who was running low on deduction points, it was truly a windfall. Lucius, who was lying on the ground nearby, watched as the dark wizards paid tribute to Charles one by one, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. He admitted that being able to make the Nocturne Alley dark wizards treat him with such caution meant that his estimation of Charles' strength was greatly off. But which of these Nocturne Alley dark wizards wasn't vicious and evil, and which one didn't have a few lives on their hands? How could they just obediently submit to a young wizard like this? There must be something fishy going on. They must be trying to make Charles lower his guard and then launch a surprise attack. Or perhaps those magic items were cursed and would make Charles suffer a painful death without him even knowing it. Yes, it must be like this. Lucius stared intently at Charles, waiting for the moment Charles would fall. However, even after the last dark wizard finished paying tribute and Charles put the dark magic items into his pocket, Lucius's eyes were almost sore from staring, and he still didn't see the scene he was expecting. Only then did a thought flash through his mind. No, they couldn't be serious, could they? Are they really paying tribute to Charles Evans? Lucius stared at the group of Nocturne Alley dark wizards with bloodshot eyes and questioned them. "You are dark wizards, how did you become like this? Where is your dignity? Where is your dignity? Where is your professional ethics?" The Nocturne Alley dark wizard scoffed at Lucius's questioning. "Dignity? Professional ethics? What a joke, we are dark wizards, what use are dignity and professional ethics? Anyone who has seen this little devil Charles Evans's performance in Nocturne Alley knows that dignity is just a piece of waste paper. This is someone who would use a blood pump on a vampire earl. Talking about dignity and ethics in front of him? Are you out of your mind?" At this moment, Lucius looked at Charles. Although he couldn't help but be shocked, he still didn't seem to think his situation was very dangerous. "The Forbidden Forest is not outside the law, Charles Evans, I think you know that." Lucius gasped for breath. "I am a member of the Hogwarts Board of Governors. Even Dumbledore has to consider my words. You are just a first-year student, Muggle-born, without power or influence. If you dare to lay a hand on me, all members of the Board of Governors will expel you from Hogwarts. So you'd better let me go, understand?" When Lucius said this, the surrounding dark wizards all gasped and then tacitly moved a little further away from Lucius. Dare to threaten Charles? Bold move. Lucius, however, didn't notice this and continued speaking. "Don't think that just because we're in the Forbidden Forest, no one will know what happened. I am the head of the Malfoy family. My disappearance for even a day will cause a huge stir in the wizarding world, and countless wizards will investigate. I've also made arrangements long ago. Once I've been missing for more than 3 days, the Malfoy family will offer a large sum of galleons as a reward for even the slightest clue. Anyone who dares to kill me will face the relentless revenge of the Malfoy family. Think about it, how many galleons is that? How many wizards can that hire?" At this point, Lucius let out a long breath, as if certain that Charles wouldn't dare to lay a hand on him, completely oblivious to the looks the dark wizards beside him were giving him. Charles, on the other hand, tilted his head and looked at Lucius, asking curiously, "Are you done? I let you say so much because you brought me so many magical items. Is this all you have to say?" Charles shook his head, yawned, and said dismissively, "A cliché threat, how boring." Immediately, he waved his wand, and twisting branches grew from the ground of the forbidden forest, collecting all the magical items on Lucius, including his wand, into Charles' hands. Looking at these magical items, Charles' eyes held a hint of fervor. The Malfoy family truly lived up to their reputation as a great noble family, and they had been the most prominent existence among wizarding nobles in recent years, indeed collecting many good things. The value of these few magical items was far greater than those offered by the dark wizards in Knockturn Alley. Charles' gaze fell on a torn piece of parchment, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. The other magical items, while containing considerable magical power, were ultimately limited. According to Charles' estimation, they should still be products of the near-ancient era, just 200 or 300 years older than the present. But the magical power emanating from this torn piece of parchment had already surpassed the near-ancient era. It was much older, a product of at least the medieval era. This was secondary. The most crucial thing was that Charles actually smelled a familiar scent from it. Although it was very faint, Charles could confirm that what lingered on it was indeed a scent similar to the one emanating from Dak. An indescribable madness, a chilling sensation. Even though the scent was faint, the madness Charles felt from it seemed even greater than what he had seen in Dak in the dream lie. If Dak's madness was a deep pool filled with water, then the madness on this parchment, although only a single drop of water, came from a boundless ocean. Charles suddenly turned his head to look at Lucius, who was still trying to threaten him, and then waved his wand. The next moment, a wooden spike created by transfiguration fiercely pierced Lucius's thigh. The excruciating pain caused Lucius to let out a wail, and he stared intently at Charles, as if unable to believe that Charles had actually attacked him. "You, how dare you? I'll have you expelled. The Malfoy family won't let you off either, and neither will the wizarding nobles." Charles, however, raised a finger and made a shushing gesture. "Shh, Lucius Malfoy. Otherwise, I will change my original plan and go kill your entire family right now. Do you want to bet?" Lucius suddenly shivered, feeling a deep chill rise from his heart. The first thing he said was that he would kill his entire family? No, what's wrong with the young wizards these days? He, a Death Eater, hadn't wiped out entire families. In a daze, Lucius remembered something. He had heard that the Sorting Hat had apparently sorted Charles Evans into Azkaban the first time, right? That made perfect sense. "Dumbledore, you old fool, why did you sort this little devil into the harmless Hufflepuff? Isn't this perhaps the most aggressive Hufflepuff in history?" A moment later, feeling the intense pain from his thigh, Lucius finally understood why the dark wizards in Knockturn Alley were so terrified of Charles. This little monster was indeed ruthless enough. He truly didn't dare to bet whether Charles would go kill his entire family. It was quite possible that Charles could actually do such a thing. With Charles' strength, the Malfoy family's magical defenses wouldn't stop him. Therefore, Lucius calmed down and shut his mouth. Only then did Charles nod in satisfaction, holding the broken parchment and asking Lucius, "Where did this parchment come from?" Lucius was stunned for a moment, not expecting Charles' first question to him to be about this parchment. He frowned, racking his brain, recalling the origin of this parchment. "This parchment is from our Malfoy family collection. It was about 10 years ago, I think, when the war had just ended. Many noble families were being plundered and had to sell off their family assets and collections to satisfy the appetites of those hyenas from the Ministry of Magic. The Malfoy family's situation was much better than theirs, so we still had the capacity to take this opportunity to acquire some rare treasures." Speaking of this, Lucius also offered an explanation. "We didn't resort to coercion or plunder. My offer was very fair, only discounted to 30%, which is much better than the Ministry of Magic. Besides, these things are well preserved by our Malfoy family. It's better than letting them rot away in the Ministry of Magic's vault. Our Malfoy family has contributed to the preservation of cultural relics." Charles waved his hand, signaling Lucius to stop talking nonsense and continue with the origin of the item. Lucius then slightly relaxed and continued. "At that time, there was a declining minor noble family, but their surname was quite ancient, said to have been passed down for over 1,000 years. Their family actually had a batch of ancient magical artifacts passed down from the time of the Hogwarts founders. Although I don't know exactly what those things were, they were ancient artifacts after all, and I thought they definitely had collection value. Especially since I heard there was a book among them, which seemed to have some historical records. It was said to be a book written by an Arabian madman named Abdullah, which scholars called the Necronomicon. It had been sealed in the deepest part of that noble family's cellar. At the time, I thought that although this thing was a book written by a madman, it was very ancient after all. If I kept it as a collection and displayed it when distinguished guests visited to show off a bit, that would be great. So I wanted to buy these things. Unfortunately, I had attended a Ministry of Magic meeting first at that time. I only got the news after the meeting ended. By the time I rushed there, that minor noble family's house was already empty, and the things had long been sold. It seemed there was even a scramble for them on the spot. Fortunately, I had asked Crabbe and Goyle to keep an eye out for such things for me at that time. When I arrived, they gave me this parchment, saying that the Necronomicon had been broken during the scramble, and they had only managed to grab this broken parchment. Later, this parchment remained in a box in my storage room. This time, I was thinking of dealing with you, and I don't know why, but I somehow inexplicably dug this thing out. To be honest, I don't know why I brought it. This thing doesn't seem to have much power. While Lucius was narrating, Charles stared intently at his expression. Lucius's occlumency wasn't very good in the original work. Voldemort could directly read his thoughts. With Charles' current level of legilimency, coupled with his medieval-level mental strength, he was even more proficient in this area than Voldemort in the original work. He could confirm that Lucius was truly hiding nothing and not lying in order to save his life. Necronomicon, Arabian madman. Charles' frown deepened. A broken piece of parchment, completely blank, without any characters or pictures recorded on it, could contain such madness. How utterly insane would the complete Necronomicon be? This thing was a bit eerie. Charles could confirm that there was no mention of the Necronomicon in the original Harry Potter books. This thing came from the era of the Hogwarts founders. Dak also adamantly believed in Lost Age that the threat the founders faced in that era was definitely not just the Inquisition. The madness on the Necronomicon seemed to be a confirmation of this. Charles' expression was quite solemn. The waters of the magical world seemed to be getting deeper and deeper. However, immediately after, Charles opened his mouth and swallowed the parchment with a gulp. Instantly, dense prompts sounded in Charles' mind. Deduction points plus 10,000. Deduction points plus 10,000. Just this small piece of broken parchment, Deep Blue actually directly converted over 1,000,000 deduction points for Charles. This made Charles take a deep breath, and the solemnity in his eyes turned into fervor. Necronomicon, I need to find this thing properly. If I eat this whole book, I'm afraid the harvest could directly compare to gnawing through the beach of the Dreamlily. Then, Charles looked at the anxious Lucius Malfoy, his expression softening slightly, and he said faintly, "Originally, I wanted to kill you, and then kill your whole family, preferably killing everyone you were close to as well." Hearing Charles' understated words, Lucius's scalp tingled, and his face instantly turned pale. What kind of devilish talk was this? Even the Dark Lord wasn't like this. Why was he playing a 9th-generation elimination game? Then, Charles smiled. Don't worry, I've changed my mind now. After all, you really brought me a lot of good things, so I won't kill your whole family. After all, keeping you around seems useful. Lucius Malfoy nodded frantically, his face full of agreement. Yes, I'm very useful, don't kill me. The Malfoy family has extensive connections, Charles. Ah no, Lord Charles, if you want to find anything, the Malfoy family's power will do its utmost to serve you. Charles nodded in satisfaction. Then you're quite sensible. All right, congratulations, you've survived. Look at you, why is your face so pale? I'm not a devil, nor am I Voldemort, right? Lucius felt a pang of bitterness in his heart. It seemed the Dark Lord was much more merciful than you, Charles Evans. But facing Charles' playful gaze, Lucius quickly lowered his head, trying his best to clear his mind of distracting thoughts. At this moment, Charles was too lazy to bother with Lucius. He just said, "Since you just said you could do your utmost to serve me, there's a favor I need you to do for me now. Can you hang upside down?" Lucius blinked, his face full of confusion. Hang upside down? Then, Charles sighed. Looks like you can't. Never mind, I'll help you. Immediately, Lucius was wrapped around the ankle by a vine and hung from a tall tree nearby. Blood dripped from the wound on his thigh, spreading a bloody smell in the night air. Charles nodded in satisfaction. Just hang there and help me catch some fish. It's not too much trouble for you, is it? Lucius's face was pale, a million grass mud horses galloping through his heart, but he could only force out a smile. No trouble. It is my honor, Lucius Malfoy, to be Lord Charles' bait. The dark wizards nearby saw Lucius Malfoy's miserable state and felt a wave of relief. It was too brutal. Fortunately, they hadn't angered Charles, otherwise they would probably be hanging upside down and dripping blood like Lucius now. But just then, Charles frowned. The Forbidden Forest is so big, relying on Lucius alone to catch fish, how long will that take? He took out the super huge pots and pans he had brought this time, as well as a small mountain of seasonings. I brought so many things, if I don't use them all today, wouldn't that be a waste? Saying that, Charles glanced at the dark wizards. The dark wizards' faces gradually turned pale. The next moment, the leading dark wizard shouted, "Lord Charles, you don't need to do it yourself, we'll go up ourselves, we'll go up." Then, he took out a small knife and gritted his teeth, poking a cut in his palm. Then he waved his wand and hung himself upside down on a tree like Lucius, letting the blood flow down. The other dark wizards followed suit. Soon, a dozen constantly dripping baits were hanging here. Seeing this scene, Lucius suddenly felt much better. At least he was hung up by Charles himself, which was much better than these wimps who hung themselves. And with so many people dripping blood together, the fish Charles wanted to catch should be caught faster, at least he wouldn't die from blood loss. Just as Lucius breathed a sigh of relief, the thickening smell of blood seemed to finally attract some bloodthirsty beings in the nearby forbidden forest. Rustle, rustle. The sound of leaves rustling came from the forbidden forest. Charles slowly grinned. Deep Blue, it's time to eat. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 105 Holy Kingdom appears, only I am the honored god manifests. Who's scaring whom? In the dark forbidden forest, rustling sounds were incessant, echoing under the night sky. The scent of blood from Lucius Malfoy and the group of dark wizards was quite noticeable in this forbidden forest, attracting many magical creatures interested in human flesh and blood. Hanging upside down, their hearts gradually filled with unease. This was the forbidden forest, it was so vast, who knew what was inside? Could Charles handle it alone? If Charles ran off, wouldn't they be left behind as bait for these magical creatures? But unlike their hearts filled with unease, Charles was busy working up a sweat, constantly setting up various pots and pans. A large pot, big enough to cook a young dragon, was propped up. According to the house elves in the Hufflepuff kitchen, this was essential equipment for outstanding Hufflepuff students back in the day, with every student entering the Forbidden Forest having one. Heated evenly, with a tough texture, magical meals cooked in this pot were said to be even more fragrant. Charles also prepared one dipping sauce dish after another, with everything from chili oil to clear broth, and then mixed in Hufflepuff's secret magical seasonings. Just the smell was incredibly fresh and savory. Just then, the magical creatures lurking in the darkness, coveting the fresh blood, finally couldn't hold back. Several pythons climbed up the trees, approaching Lucius and the dark wizards who were constantly bleeding. But before they could get close, the branches of the trees they were on seemed to come alive. The dense branches transformed into steel knives of various sizes and orientations, while the leaves turned into sharp shapes like barbecue skewers. Before the pythons could even react, they had only been there for a moment. The next second, their snake skin, snake meat, snake heads, snake bones, and so on were all sliced and skewered, and sent to the tray in front of Charles. Charles sorted them into various pots and dipping sauce dishes, followed by a rich aroma. Charles devoured the snake meat in large mouthfuls. Although these pythons were not magical creatures that could be classified by rank, having lived in the Forbidden Forest for a long time, they also had magic within them, albeit weak. But stimulated by Hufflepuff's amazing magical seasonings, they provided Charles with significantly more points than he had estimated, comparable to some magical items bought in Diagon Alley. Charles' eyes immediately lit up. Hufflepuff's magical meal preparation is indeed a marvel, so useful, incredibly useful. In the future, if I have extra points, and after those farms are established, I can really spend more points on magical meals. The returns are truly generous. While Charles was feasting, many other animals were continuously attracted to the Forbidden Forest, including some that were truly classified as magical creatures. But the result was without exception. Charles didn't even need to deliberately wave his wand. These animals were skinned and boned, becoming part of the boiling soup pot and fragrant seasoning dishes. The smell of blood in the air was even almost covered by the rich aroma of the magical meals. However, Charles' brows furrowed. It had been this long, and still no big catches had taken the bait. So far, only some small fry had been attracted, and after eating for half a day, it wasn't even enough for 10,000 points. Is this all the Forbidden Forest has? Although I haven't truly entered the depths yet, it shouldn't be like this. Charles looked at Lucius and the dark wizards who were still hanging upside down and bleeding. It seems your bleeding isn't quite enough. Have the wounds solidified and healed? Why aren't several of you bleeding anymore? Lucius and the dark wizards' faces instantly turned even paler. Lord Charles. We've already bled a lot. If we keep bleeding like this, we're afraid we'll die from blood loss. Charles, however, waved his hand, his face full of gentleness. Don't worry, I'm not a devil, how could I let you die just like that? The healing magic I just learned is to avoid this situation. Don't worry, I've tried it, and the effect is great. Two foolish guys who spoke out of turn had their tongues cut dozens of times by me and they still haven't died. Your injuries are nothing. Will you do it yourselves or shall I help you? Lucius and the dark wizards were filled with despair and bitterness. Damn it, this was the pure face of a capitalist. No, that's not right, a capitalist's bloodsucking is just a metaphor. Charles was literally bleeding them dry. However, remembering that Charles could stick a blood pump into the chest of a vampire earl and make him bleed enough to fill over a dozen swimming pools, the dark wizard still shivered. The leading dark wizard looked at Lucius with a look of admonishment and said, Lucius, listen to my advice, don't let Lord Charles do it himself. Then, he decisively gave himself another cut, enduring the pain to make the wound larger, directly doubling the bleeding. Watching the group of dark wizards who would rather endure this than let Charles make a move, a chill also spread through Lucius's heart. He truly didn't know what Charles had done in Nocturne Alley had he directly scared the guts out of this group of Nocturne Alley dark wizards. But having learned from past mistakes, Lucius absolutely did not want to try again to see how ruthless Charles could be. He decisively followed suit, adopting the same approach as the dark wizards. Only then did Charles nod in satisfaction. Very good, that's the way it should be. You guys are sensible, proactive, and show some initiative. Isn't this a win-win situation? How about this, each of you gets a mouthful of soup to replenish yourselves, so you don't say I'm mistreating you. Immediately, Charles waved his wand, and a bowl of the soup, which had been boiled with various magical creatures, was delivered to each person's mouth. Lucius and the dark wizards were originally feeling their scalps tingle. After all, they had seen various snakes, scorpions, and strange magical creatures boiled in this soup. But smelling the rich aroma of the soup, the group still couldn't help but take a sip. Instantly, the delicious taste seemed to spread to their minds, making them forget the pain from their bleeding wounds. Fresh. This soup is really fresh. The group couldn't help but praise in intoxication. Charles grinned. Although these soups were made from scraps, they were boiled from a large number of magical creatures, and Hufflepuff's magical seasonings were also added, so the nourishing effect was absolutely top-notch. With a bowl of the soup each, plus the assistance of his healing magic, they should be able to withstand bleeding for another 2 or 3 hours. Just then, an unprecedentedly dense rustling sound suddenly echoed in the Forbidden Forest. Along with it came a series of clicking sounds, as if something hard and sharp was colliding with each other. At the same time, an indescribable smell also drifted through the air. The people hanging upside down didn't know what kind of creature this smell belonged to, but the instinctive fear surging from the depths of their blood made them realize that the newcomers were definitely not benevolent. It must be some famous, man-eating, extremely dangerous existence. The next moment, shadows larger than carriages appeared among the trees in the Forbidden Forest, which were giant spiders with 8 eyes, acromantulas. The clicking sound was precisely the sound of the acromantula's giant pincers colliding. Seeing these dark wizards hanging upside down and constantly dripping blood, the acromantula's eyes revealed almost tangible greed and appetite. They circled around Charles and the group of dark wizards, as if choosing a suitable angle and part to start eating. However, before they pounced, an exceptionally large, old, and even blind acromantula walked out from the spider swarm. This was Aragog, the acromantula that Hagrid first raised in the Forbidden Forest in the original work. It looked at Hagrid, and the acromantulas next to it seemed to be reporting the situation to it. Aragog's blind eyes showed surprise and greed, and it spoke in the language of wizards. Hagrid told us tonight to scare a little wizard, but not to really hurt him, just to let him know he was wrong, to know that he shouldn't insult the great Dumbledore. As soon as he says stop, we have to leave. Originally, I didn't want to agree. After all, we acromantulas are not circus clowns, but Hagrid is our benefactor. But now, Hagrid seems to have fainted. Then he can't say stop, which means we don't have to stop, and we can continue. Aragog's giant pincers kept opening and closing. That's really great, we've been hungry, and we really want to eat people. Those acromantulas also revealed their ferocity one by one, their huge bodies getting closer and closer to Charles and the others. Lucius and the group of dark wizards hanging in midair were filled with despair and fear. Acromantulas are creatures classified by the Ministry of Magic as extremely dangerous magical creatures, 5x level, the same level as dragons. With so many acromantulas, even a few dragons coming over would probably be eaten by them. Facing such monsters, ordinary wizards have no ability to resist, and they are no exception. The most terrifying thing is that they don't eat their prey cleanly and quickly, but inject venom, causing the prey's body to slowly dissolve, and then suck it dry bit by bit. This is definitely the most terrifying way to die rather than being eaten like this. It's better to just commit suicide. Lucius looked at the unconscious Hagrid, and a look of utter exasperation appeared in his eyes. He had long known that this half-giant liked all sorts of strange things, and he had guessed before that Hagrid most likely raised various magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest. But he never expected that what Hagrid was raising was a bunch of 5x level acromantulas. Raising this kind of thing in the Forbidden Forest? Is this guy out of his mind? If this group of acromantulas gets unbearably hungry one day and rushes out of the Forbidden Forest into Hogwarts, who knows how many casualties they could cause in the castle? Dumbledore, you old busybody, what kind of person did you choose to be the gamekeeper? Can't you be more reliable? Then, Lucius roared at Charles, quickly put us down, give me back my wand, and we'll fight side by side. If that doesn't work, I'd rather kill myself than be eaten by this group of spiders. But at this moment, Lucius looked at Charles and felt a hint of absurdity, because Charles's face not only showed no fear or dread, but instead, a ferocious smile spread across it, as if he had finally seen a table full of delicacies after being hungry for a long time. You don't mean to deal with this group of spiders by yourself, do you? Lucius couldn't help but ask. Charles acted as if he hadn't heard, licking his lips. I heard that spiders are relatives of king crabs, and spider meat tastes very similar to king crab. It's rare to have such large spiders, and they're magical creatures on the same level as fire dragons. What a feast, truly a feast. The rarest thing is that although acromantulas are magical creatures, I remember that according to the classification of magical creatures, due to your bloodthirsty and man-eating nature, you are considered to be naturally affected by dark magic, and some of you can be classified as dark creatures, right? That's even more wonderful. Immediately, Charles slowly raised the mithril wand in his hand, and a dazzling stream of white gold light slowly climbed up along the mithril wand. Only then did Charles speak to Lucius and the group of dark wizards. In return for you fishing for the big fish for me, I sincerely give you a piece of advice. Close your eyes, and don't look at what you shouldn't look at. Otherwise, if you die, don't blame me. Charles didn't need to say more. At this moment, Lucius and the others had already felt a terrifying aura from the mithril wand in Charles' hand. That white gold light was incredibly fierce and extremely sacred. It was like the legendary sharpness flowing from the sword edge of a seraph. Just looking at it made their eyes sting, especially for those who had practiced dark magic. Everyone quickly closed their eyes, and some even plugged their ears. Knowing too much would really lead to death. Even a ruthless and cold-blooded young wizard like Charles had specifically warned them, and none of them dared to challenge Charles' authority. At this moment, Charles looked at the stirring acromantulas and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Don't even think about running. Food, it's all my food. Hey, didn't you want to continue? Then continue, don't stop. The next moment, a brilliant white gold light erupted, making this part of the Forbidden Forest seem like a holy kingdom. The clicking sounds of the acromantula's giant pincers fell silent. Here, above and below, only Charles' voice echoed. It was as if it were the proverb of a god in a divine realm. The Holy Kingdom spell, after Azkaban, erupted again in the Hogwarts Forbidden Forest. Appearing at the same time was the only I am the honored god spell. An indescribable, tall, sacred existence, like a demon god, rose in the Forbidden Forest, looking down at the acromantulas. Aragog let out a fearful growl. Hagrid, we treated you as a friend, as a benefactor, and yet you painstakingly tried to harm us. What kind of monster did you bring into the Forbidden Forest? This sacred magic, this level of sacred spell, even the Black Magic Lord would probably get a big slap if he came. You want us to scare him? Who is scaring whom? Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 106, Chapter 106, Please Stop Eating, Can't We Acromantulas Just Sing and Dance? The fear in Aragog's heart had not yet dissipated when a platinum gold light extended and spread, enveloping the nearby acromantulas. That brilliant platinum gold light was like a fatal sword to dark creatures. Even though his eyes were blind, Aragog could feel the sharp edge coming towards him, and the fear that arose from instinct. Not only that, but as the Holy Kingdom spell expanded, the unspeakable image summoned by the only I am the honored god spell also began its actions. Tentacles descended from the sky, wrapping around the acromantulas one by one. The ancient dragon heads and huge Charl human faces extending from the unspeakable image seemed to have spotted some delicacy, and couldn't wait to swallow the acromantulas, which were larger than carriages, whole. Then came the teeth-grinding crunching sounds. Deep blue prompts kept ringing in Charles' mind. Deduction points plus 1,000. Deduction points plus 1,000. Eating a whole acromantula could provide nearly 20,000 deduction points. Although it was still far less than the dragons, which were known for their immense magic power, it was far more than other magical creatures. The points provided by one acromantula were more than the total of all the magical creatures Charles had gone to great lengths to eat before. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen acromantulas were swallowed, providing Charles with nearly 300,000 deduction points. And because acromantulas carried dark magic and had some characteristics of dark creatures, they could also provide growth for the Holy Kingdom spell and the Only I Am the Honored God spell. The platinum gold magic power became more brilliant and sacred, and the unspeakable image became more magnificent. New tentacles extended from it, forming a contrast between the sacred and the eerie. At this moment, the tentacles coiling around the acromantulas stopped. Aragog thought that Charles was finally going to stop, or that the duration of the spell was about to end, and was secretly congratulating himself on his narrow escape, when he heard Charles say regretfully, "Damn it, how could I forget this? Before, I always ate them raw, but now I have seasoning. How good would it taste with seasoning, and the magic power would be even more stimulated. I have to change this habit of eating raw meat and drinking blood. I'm not only a civilized person, but also a Hufflepuff. How can we Hufflepuffs eat without dipping sauce?" Then, the tentacles extending from the image of the Only I Am the Honored God spell, as if reminded, grabbed the acromantulas one by one and dipped them into the sauce dishes, which were either clear soup or red oil. After being fully coated with the magical seasoning, the tentacles grabbed the acromantulas again and threw them into their mouths. With this bite, the plump spider meat, abundant magic power mixed with the delicious Hufflepuff dipping sauce, made the unspeakable image show a look of satisfaction on its face, as if its appetite was greatly stimulated, and the speed of grabbing the acromantulas increased by a few points. The prompts in Charles' mind kept ringing. In a short time, nearly 50 acromantulas were swallowed, and the points provided to Charles reached over 1,000,000. The platinum gold sacred magic power became even more awe-inspiring and arrogant, impossible to look at directly. But for the acromantulas, this was simply a nightmare. As dangerous magical creatures of the 5x level, they should have been at the top of the food chain, but now they were like fish on a chopping board, only to be slaughtered by Charles. By the time Charles finally stopped, more than half of the acromantula colony had been eaten. The brilliant platinum gold magic power dimmed, and Charles lifted the Holy Kingdom and the Only I Am the Honored God spell. It wasn't that he was unable to maintain it, but that Charles never did things that would drain the pond to catch all the fish. Acromantulas, what good food! If he ate up the acromantula colony in the Forbidden Forest all at once, wouldn't there be nothing to eat in the future? But if he raised them, expanded the scale of farming, he could come and eat them every once in a while. Between being full once and being full every time, Charles would naturally choose the latter. At this time, Charles looked at Aragog, whom he had deliberately spared, and asked curiously, "Hey, you're Aragog, right? Hagrid's friend? What did you just say? I have a bad memory, can you repeat it?" Aragog and the other acromantulas no longer had their previous ferocity. They were all submissive, and even the bristles that had been raised before were retracted, trying to make themselves look like better-looking distant cousins, appearing more refined. Facing Charles' question, Aragog shivered and quickly said with humility and flattery, "Lord Charles, Hagrid asked us to prepare a welcome ceremony for you. Our Forbidden Forest is simple in customs and hospitable, especially our acromantula race, which is known for being harmless to humans and animals. We are a peace-loving and song and dance-loving race. So this welcome ceremony will be held by us acromantulas on behalf of the Forbidden Forest. What we are best at is tap dancing." Aragog turned to the remaining acromantulas and roared in a low voice, "Quick, girls, perform a dance for Lord Charles." Then, the most charming and hot female spiders among the acromantulas walked out trembling, their 8 legs shaking, and performed a tap dance for Charles that could poke holes in trees. While the hot dance was going on, Aragog shouted at the male acromantulas, "What are you young men standing around for? Play music." The male acromantulas were stunned for a moment, then quickly, under Aragog's command, dismantled some trees, wrapped them with spider silk, and tried to play some music like humans. At this moment, a smile appeared on the corner of Charles' mouth. Aragog, that old spider, was quite sensible, which saved Charles the trouble of doing anything further. Immediately, he waved his wand and released the terrified Lucius and the group of dark wizards from the trees. Only then did Lucius and the others cautiously remove the hands covering their eyes. What greeted them was a sight they would never forget. A group of acromantulas were trying their best to look pleasing, some clumsily tap dancing, others attempting to play the violin. Lucius and the others felt a sense of disillusionment. Were these really the legendary, extremely ferocious and dangerous 5X-rated magical creatures, the acromantulas? They had practically become a bunch of lackeys. What on earth had Charles done to these acromantulas? This was too brutal. Thinking of the incessant chewing sounds from before, and seeing that the number of acromantulas had been reduced by more than half, a chill ran through everyone's hearts. A sudden sense of relief surged in Lucius's heart. He had thought Charles' methods towards him were already cruel and excessive, but now it seemed that was nothing compared to this. Fortunately, he had bowed his head quickly, otherwise, he might not even be able to find his bones now. At this moment, besides fear, there was also a lingering confusion in everyone's hearts. How did this little devil master such sacred magic? No, shouldn't he be the first target to be eliminated by sacred magic? Charles watched Aragog and the others' performance, clapped his hands, and said, all right, that's enough. I'm quite satisfied with your welcoming ceremony, so I won't eat you for now. As soon as he said this, Aragog and the others collapsed onto the ground, repeatedly thanking Charles and expressing their loyalty. Charles then asked another question. So, do you know what the acromantula species is going to do next? Aragog said loudly, we know. To obey Lord Charles' command and orders, to thoroughly study Lord Charles' ideals, and to strive for Lord Charles' noble cause, that is the survival goal of our acromantula species. Before he finished speaking, Charles let out a reprimand. Nonsense. Don't flatter me here. I'm telling you, the only thing the acromantula species needs to do next is reproduce. Give birth like your lives depend on it, and expand your population as quickly as possible. Aragog was stunned for a moment and subconsciously said, but Lord Charles, our species is monogamous. According to the current numbers, pairing up like this will take a long time to recover to the original level. Charles narrowed his eyes and smiled. What did you say? Is the acromantula species monogamous? Which book says that? Do you want to double-check? Although Charles said this with a smile, Aragog felt a deep chill. It stiffly turned its head and asked the younger acromantulas. I'm old, and my memory isn't very good anymore. I don't know much about the younger acromantulas. The monogamy I mentioned was from my time. What system do we have recently? An acromantula subconsciously said, aren't we still monogamous? The next moment, its mouth was directly blocked by a ball of spider silk. A particularly strong acromantula stepped forward. Chief, you've indeed remembered incorrectly. As early as the development meeting 10 years ago, we unanimously passed the decision to abolish monogamy. Now we have a free mating system, all for the expansion of the species. Aragog suddenly understood and quickly said to Charles, yes, Lord Charles, monogamy was changed a long time ago. If any idiotic magical zoologist still claims we have this backward system, please represent us in lodging a strong protest. However, Aragog still gritted its fangs and asked another question. It's just that if we reproduce too quickly, there won't be enough food in the Forbidden Forest area to support us. If we keep expanding our territory, we're bound to run into some Hogwarts students sneaking out at night. If the Ministry of Magic finds out, we'll all be finished. Charles waved his hand dismissively at this, saying faintly, it's fine, you don't need to worry about having too many. We Hufflepuffs value ecological balance the most. Maintaining the environment is our duty. If your numbers become too large and cause an ecological imbalance, I will help you solve this problem. Bring your own bowls and chopsticks. No, I mean, it's free help. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 107, Hatching the Phoenix. How much for the nutrition fee? Unicorns donate blood. Charles didn't say how he would solve it, but everyone present, including the acromantulas, understood. How else could it be solved? It was nothing more than eating. Once the population became excessive, Charles would come and eat the surplus acromantulas. However, for the acromantulas, this was actually acceptable. After all, cannibalism among their own kind was part of spider nature. Although acromantulas were social animals, if they faced food shortages, they would also kill weaker companions to fill their bellies. Sacrificing those weaker acromantulas to Charles carried no moral burden for them. But the next moment, Charles thought for a moment, then rummaged through his personal box, pulling out a book. I knew it, I remember this book has always been in my box. Charles threw the Muggle textbook on ecological communities to Aragog. Under Aragog's puzzled gaze, Charles pointed to a curved graph inside and said to Aragog, this is a population reproduction rate graph studied by Muggles. You need to remember it well, study it well, and find the population node where your acromantula colony reproduces fastest. Remember, farming must be scientific. As for the topic of studying acromantula ecology, I'll leave it to you. Looking at the textbook handed to him, Aragog felt a chill in his heart. This was practically asking him to study how to kill acromantulas quickly and in large numbers. He just wanted to ask one question now. Which idiot assigned this little wizard to Hufflepuff? Is this really Hufflepuff? Even Slytherin couldn't come up with something so vicious. Lucius and the group of dark wizards who witnessed this scene became even more timid. It was too terrifying. Charles' terror wasn't just in his strength, more importantly, this guy didn't treat his enemies as people at all. He used various cruel and ruthless methods that revealed themselves from his very bones without any hesitation. In a sense, they felt that Charles was even more terrifying than Dumbledore or even Voldemort. At this moment, having settled the matter of acromantula farming, and with another acromantula farming base added to the Forbidden Forest, Charles was in a great mood. So, his basic goal for coming to the Forbidden Forest this time was achieved. However, there was one last thing, which was to search for traces of the Paradise Phoenix. This was related to his third magical Oxio transformation. To find the Paradise Phoenix, the map provided by Professor Sprout was certainly very important. After all, that was where the Hufflepuff founder first placed the Paradise Phoenix egg. However, judging from the fact that subsequent Hufflepuff heads of house found nothing, there must be some variable involved. At this time, native creatures like acromantulas, who had lived in the Forbidden Forest for a long time, could be helpful. Immediately, Charles took out the ancient map that Professor Sprout had given him and asked the acromantulas to see where this place was. After seeing the area marked on the map, the acromantulas said with surprise and uncertainty, "This place? Isn't this the territory of that group of unicorns deep in the Forbidden Forest?" Upon hearing this, Charles' eyebrows raised slightly. Unicorns? A group? He knew there were unicorns deep in the Forbidden Forest. After all, there was a specific description of this in the original work, where Voldemort specifically went to the Forbidden Forest just to drink unicorn blood to restore some of his magic. However, Charles hadn't expected that. According to the acromantulas, there seemed to be more than just one or two unicorns deep in the Forbidden Forest, but a group. At this point, Charles suddenly remembered something, which was that Hagrid, the gamekeeper, seemed to have a lot of unicorn materials. For example, blankets and bags woven from unicorn hair. It should be known that unicorn hair was also an extremely precious material. The hair of powerful unicorns could even be used as material for making wands and was very popular among wizards. Such a precious material was certainly not bought by Hagrid legitimately, it must have been obtained from the Forbidden Forest. If there were only one or two unicorns in the Forbidden Forest, how long would it take Hagrid to collect enough hair to make blankets and bags? Thinking from this perspective, there should indeed be a group of unicorns in the Forbidden Forest. However, this was the most unreasonable part, because unicorns were not animals that lived in large groups. These animals were inherently pure and noble, living alone, at most in a small family group of 2 or 3. In a sense, this was also because unicorn materials were too coveted. If too many gathered, it would easily attract poachers. Therefore, large groups of unicorns were simply not seen in the magical world. But according to the acromantulas, there were more than just 1 or 2 unicorns in the Forbidden Forest, at least a dozen or 20, all concentrated in one area. This goes against the nature of unicorns. Unless they are attracted by something, they will do things that go against their nature and live in groups in this area. After thinking of this possibility, Charles' eyes lit up. Unicorn magic is typically sacred magic. What can attract them must be a higher level of sacred magic. As a legendary magical creature, the Paradise Phoenix's sacred magic is far beyond that of a regular phoenix, making it very likely to attract unicorns. This means that the Paradise Phoenix must still be in this area and has not disappeared. It has just been concealed by some means, and no one has been able to find it. Charles immediately had the acromantulas take him to the unicorn's territory. Aragog obediently let Charles climb onto its back, and then it began to move through the forest. Even though it was blind, spiders don't rely much on their eyes to determine direction anyway. Having stayed in the Forbidden Forest for so many years, Aragog was very familiar with the nearby terrain and moved as if on flat ground. Coupled with the acromantula's massive size, a gentle stride could cover a distance of over 10 meters, making its speed in the Forbidden Forest even faster than a car. Half an hour later, they had taken Charles deep into the Forbidden Forest, an unknown distance, until the scent of sacred magic came from an area ahead. Only then did the acromantulas show disgusted looks and stop one after another. Lord Charles, the disgusting smell of those unicorns has drifted over. Their territory is ahead. Aragog's eyes showed solemnity and apprehension. They had also wanted the unicorn's territory. After all, this was the center of the Forbidden Forest, and food would be more abundant. But that group of unicorns was not to be trifled with. In terms of individual strength, unicorns were inherently stronger than individual acromantulas, not to mention they possessed sacred magic, which had a restraining effect on acromantulas. A dozen unicorns living together in a group were not something they could easily take down. What's more, every time they stepped onto this area, Aragog and the others would feel a chilling sensation, as if there was some even more powerful sacred magic in this place. Once that magic awakened, they would be like ants, instantly wiped out. Because of this, the acromantulas usually did not approach this area. If it weren't for Charles urging this time, they wouldn't have come either. At this moment, as the acromantulas gathered, silver-white figures also appeared one after another in the forbidden forest ahead. The moonlight shone down, the silver light shimmered, and silver mist filled with sacred magic rose, making the area ahead like a pure land on earth. In contrast, the acromantulas outside this area, and Charles, who was standing on the back of an acromantula, seemed like beings that had crawled out of a dirty hell, twisted and evil. The unicorns cast disgusted glances. A particularly tall unicorn walked out from the group and snorted. "Acromantulas? You dirty, dark creatures are not welcome here. Leave quickly." After issuing the warning, its gaze immediately fell on Charles. At first, the unicorns thought Charles had been captured by these acromantulas. But soon, seeing the acromantulas respectfully letting Charles dismount from their backs, the unicorns understood that Charles was the one controlling these acromantulas. The Unicorn King let out an increasingly disgusted low growl. "Naturally evil Slytherin little wizard, quickly leave with your minions." But the next moment, the words that came out of Charles' mouth made the unicorns freeze for a moment. Charles said righteously, "Slytherin? How can you slander me like that? I am from Hufflepuff." The unicorns stirred for a moment, their eyes showing human-like suspicion. "Hufflepuff? When did Hufflepuff get mixed up with acromantulas?" After the commotion, the Unicorn King growled again. "No matter which house you are from, you are not welcome here." Hearing this, Charles sneered and retorted, "I heard that unicorns are the purest and most righteous creatures. Now it seems that reputation is not deserved." The Unicorn King's eyes revealed anger. "What did you say?" Charles' sneer grew even stronger. "You were just trying to expel a Hufflepuff student from the Forbidden Forest? Is there anything more shameless than that? The Forbidden Forest was originally established by our Hufflepuff house. Its legal ownership has belonged to Hufflepuff since ancient times. This is our Hufflepuff territory. You are the outsiders, and you dare to expel me? Have you no shame? Furthermore, this area was also left by the founder of Hufflepuff for future generations. You are gathering here and occupying it, attempting to claim the clearly designated inheritance of the Hufflepuff founder for yourselves. Words like thief and robber are not enough to describe you." The unicorns were stunned by what he said, and then felt a pang of guilt. Because what Charles said seemed to make some sense, they were indeed outsiders, and they had gathered here because of something hidden within. Even when the previous few Hufflepuff heads of house came, they quickly drove them away. Now, they truly had no confidence to refute Charles. However, the things here were too important to the unicorns. Their entire tribe had guarded this place for hundreds of years, and it was absolutely impossible for Charles to bring the acromantulas here. Therefore, the Unicorn King's gaze gradually turned cold. "Little wizard, this is the last warning. Leave this place quickly, otherwise we cannot guarantee that we won't hurt you." Upon hearing this, Charles also revealed a brilliant smile. "You should have said so earlier. In the end, it still comes down to strength. Since that's the case." His gaze fell upon the sacred magic emanating from the unicorns, and a hint of disdain appeared in his eyes, his lips slowly curving into a sneer. "I'd like to see, with just this weak and powerless sacred magic, what makes you think you can challenge me? And what darkness can this bit of sacred magic truly dispel?" The next moment, under the shocked gaze of the unicorns, Charles waved his wand again. A cold, platinum gold light shone, and the sacred land poured forth. The indescribable form of the "Only I am the honored god" spell also appeared before the unicorns. Looking at that silent, profound, indescribable form where divinity and evil intertwined, the Unicorn King felt a sense of terror. What is this?" Charles grinned. "This is true holiness. Powerful, ruthless, crushing everything. All that stands before me is darkness. You want to stop me? Then you, too, are evil that should be crushed." As he spoke, the indescribable demon god's body was wrapped in the platinum gold sacred land, flames raging, as if to annihilate all darkness. Immediately after, the ancient dragon head on the demon god's body lifted high, and sacred magic, almost tangible to the naked eye, gathered. The next moment, it transformed into a resounding dragon roar, whistling out. A platinum gold sacred roar. Boiling sacred magic poured out, engulfing the unicorns. The unicorns let out cries of terror. Compared to this extremely powerful and extreme sacred magic, their silver-white magic was like child's play. Perhaps the total amount of magic from a dozen unicorns was not weaker than this sacred roar, but the difference in the nature of the magic was too great, they simply couldn't resist. Sacred magic might not be able to kill these unicorns, but it could make them feel an overwhelming majesty, as if facing a being far superior and more sacred than themselves. The bodies of the unicorns trembled continuously, but they were holding on, unwilling to bow their heads. The Unicorn King was even struggling to resist this sacred dragon roar, raising its head and letting out a long neigh. "You can destroy us, but you can never make us bow our heads or surrender. We have guarded this place for generations, for hundreds of years, and we will never give up at this time." Charles' eyes lit up when he heard the unicorn's declaration. Hearing this, it was even more certain. The Paradise Phoenix egg must still be here, perhaps even close to hatching, which was why the unicorns were so desperate. But then, his brows furrowed. Compared to the easily submissive dark wizards, acromantulas, and others, the unicorns were much harder to break. It was clear they had encountered a power they couldn't resist, yet they were still resisting, looking utterly unwilling to surrender. It was possible they would truly rather their entire tribe die than let Charles find the Paradise Phoenix egg. Trouble, really troublesome. That's why I hate it the most when beings with faith become my enemies. Even destroying them seems unable to achieve my goal. Charles' brows were tightly furrowed. The next moment, a flash of inspiration crossed his mind. A moment later, he stopped the sacred dragon roar of the "Only I am the honored god" spell and looked at the unicorns with appreciative eyes. "Good, you are very good. Congratulations on passing my test." The unicorns, who had just breathed a sigh of relief from the dragon roar, looked at Charles with bewildered faces. "What are you talking about? What test?" Charles said as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Of course, it's a test to see if you are qualified to follow the Paradise Phoenix. The Paradise Phoenix is about to revive. That is a creature from mythology, the most pure and sacred existence. Even phoenixes pale in comparison. How can ordinary beings follow and serve it? Therefore, of course, I have to test you. Now, I am very satisfied with the result. You have served as guardians for hundreds of years, and you have merit. You did not give up when facing an insurmountable enemy. Only with such character are you qualified to follow the Paradise Phoenix. Congratulations, you have passed the test." The unicorn stirred. The Unicorn King was also stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. "Don't try to deceive us. What kind of existence are you? What right do you have to test us on behalf of the Paradise Phoenix?" Charles' eyes showed pity, and he said faintly, "Pitiful. Have you still not realized what I am, even now? Think carefully with your brains. What in the world can possess such powerful and sacred magic? And what would know about the Paradise Phoenix, come here specifically, and even test you for the sake of the Paradise Phoenix? What is the motive behind this? Now, have you still not figured it out?" The unicorns thought along with Charles' words. Possessing such powerful sacred magic, and being so concerned about the Paradise Phoenix, the Unicorn King showed a look of utter astonishment and disbelief. Could it be that you are also a Paradise Phoenix?" The next moment, Charles let out an appreciative laugh. Instantly, he used his oxio, transforming into a large bird with golden feathers, elegant and noble, shaped like a phoenix. It flapped its wings and flew into the sacred land, standing on the head of the demon god summoned by the "Only I am the honored god" spell. "Congratulations, you guessed correctly. That's right, I am also a Paradise Phoenix, and a distant elder relative of the one you are guarding." The Unicorn King and the unicorns were stunned, whispering among themselves, seemingly accompanied by arguments. The Unicorn King couldn't help but ask a question. "Since you are a Paradise Phoenix, why is your magic so strange? That thing doesn't look like Paradise Phoenix magic at all. That sound just now, why did it sound like the dragon roar of a legendary ancient dragon?" Charles, however, said with a straight face and no change in heart, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Have you seen Paradise Phoenix magic? Do you understand, or do I understand? Do you know why the Paradise Phoenix is the most sacred and powerful magical creature? Because we constantly improve, unlike you who just rely on bloodline instinct and don't strive for progress. My magic is all-encompassing. Since I have seen ancient dragon magic, of course I have to absorb it. What, do you understand Paradise Phoenix magic better than I, a Paradise Phoenix, do?" The Unicorn King thought about it, and it seemed to make sense. He wasn't a Paradise Phoenix, how could he understand this? Such powerful sacred magic should only be possessed by a Paradise Phoenix. At this point, the Unicorn King completely lowered his head. Charles transformed back into human form and said with satisfaction, "All right, take me to see my only relative in this world." The Unicorn King hesitated for a moment, then nodded, ordering the other unicorns to stay here, while it led Charles towards a place in the forbidden forest. Soon, when they arrived at a rock face, Charles' gaze subtly shifted. Perhaps ordinary wizards couldn't sense it, but with his mental power that had already leaped to the medieval level, he could clearly feel a vast sacred magic hidden deep within the rock face. The Unicorn King whispered, "The Paradise Phoenix egg is here." After the Hufflepuff founder's protective magic failed, we sensed the aura of the Paradise Phoenix and gathered here spontaneously, bringing the Paradise Phoenix egg here to guard it. We also used our magic to create a protective barrier outside. Not only does it help with the phoenix's hatching, but it also isolates its aura. Charles finally understood upon hearing this. No wonder every Hufflepuff head of house who came here found nothing. These unicorns' protective measures were truly well done. Following the Unicorn King, Charles then proceeded underground through a crack in the rock face. Soon, a soft, silvery white light appeared before his eyes, emanating from the unicorn's magic. And deep within the silvery white light, a point of golden magic shimmered. The source of that golden magic was an egg with fire-like patterns on it. The moment he saw the egg, a fervent emotion surged in Charles' heart. "The Paradise Phoenix egg, found." The Unicorn King, relieved, spoke to Charles. "You've come at the right time. Actually, there's a problem with this egg, and we are powerless to do anything about it. The Phoenix egg requires powerful sacred magic to hatch. The founder of Hufflepuff prepared a sacred spell for it, but with the passage of time, that spell has become ineffective. Later, we used our own magic to create a hatching environment for it, and that did have an effect. But in the past few decades, the Phoenix egg has remained in this state, unable to progress further. We suspect that our sacred magic is not powerful enough, which is why we cannot fully hatch the Phoenix. Since you are of the same race and also possess such powerful sacred magic, it is perfectly suitable for you to hatch the Phoenix." Charles' eyes showed understanding. He also finally understood why this Phoenix egg was not mentioned in the original story. It seemed that under normal circumstances, this thing simply couldn't hatch. After all, when it came to sacred magic, even someone as strong as Dumbledore was strong in transfiguration, and the intensity of his sacred magic was far less than Charles'. If Charles hadn't appeared in this world, the Phoenix would have had no conditions for hatching at all. Immediately after, Charles waved his wand, unleashing a powerful sacred spell once more. The platinum gold light swept like a tide, engulfing the silvery white light emitted by the unicorns and enveloping the Phoenix egg. Instantly, Charles could feel the egg of the Phoenix radiating joyful and excited emotions. Even the fire-like patterns on the egg now glowed with golden red light. 3 months, providing this intensity of sacred magic every day, at most 3 months, the last Paradise Phoenix in this world will hatch. Charles clenched his fist. The Paradise Phoenix, a myth left over from ancient times, had already become extinct in the medieval era. The power of its sacred magic was naturally self-evident, and it would be an epic enhancement for the sacred land and the only I am the honored god spell. Not to mention its magic also had the effect of prolonging life, even stronger than the Philosopher's Stone. To obtain its bloodline to complete the third type of Oxio transformation, just 3 months, Charles could afford to wait. At this moment, the Unicorn King, witnessing the anomaly in the Phoenix egg, also became excited. Their race had guarded the Phoenix for hundreds of years. If the Phoenix was born in its generation, they would be able to follow it, and their centuries-old wish would be fulfilled. For this, the Unicorn King would spare no effort. Upon hearing Charles say that the Phoenix would hatch in at most 3 months, the Unicorn King couldn't help but tear up. Just then, Charles turned to look at the Unicorn King, a strange look in his eyes. Getting a Phoenix in 3 months was true, but unicorns were also magical creatures with very powerful magic, and they couldn't be let go either. There was only one Phoenix, and it couldn't be bred, but unicorns could, providing a continuous stream of points. Therefore, Charles said to the Unicorn King, "Don't rush to cry yet, I have a little situation here." Saying that, Charles coughed twice. "Hatching the Phoenix egg, even for me, is a huge burden. It's not like the old days, my magic is weakening. I need to damage my origin to hatch it, so shouldn't you provide some nutritional fees?" Upon hearing this, the Unicorn King was first stunned, then a look of guilt appeared in its eyes, and its hooves restlessly pawed the ground twice. "Nutritional fees, it seems we should provide them. But we have no money. We have guarded the Phoenix here for generations, and we have no treasures." It felt a little guilty. "It seems we don't have anything to offer." Seeing the Unicorn King's appearance, Charles was a little speechless. This guy was straightforward, but he didn't seem very smart. Then, Charles said, "You don't need to offer any treasures. How about this? Unicorn blood contains powerful sacred magic and can barely replenish my losses. How about setting up a voluntary blood donation station among the unicorns in the future? Each unicorn comes regularly to donate blood voluntarily as my nutritional fee. What do you think? How about donating blood once every 7 days?" The Unicorn King stood there, seemingly thinking about the voluntary blood donation Charles mentioned. Then, upon hearing about donating blood once every 7 days, the Unicorn King shook its head repeatedly. No, no. 7 days is too long. What if your nutrition doesn't keep up and affects the hatching of the phoenix? 3 days, at least donate blood once every 3 days. After Charles nodded in astonishment, the Unicorn King looked even more overjoyed and said to Charles, "Thank you, as long as we donate a little blood, we are satisfied. As expected of the phoenix's elder, you are indeed kind-hearted. You are truly a good person. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description." 108 Reversion Potion. He's more terrifying than the Black Magic Lord. Coming out from the depths of the rock wall where the phoenix egg was hidden, Charles' eyes showed a satisfied expression. Having reached this point, this trip to the Forbidden Forest was truly worthwhile. The Acromantula breeding ground and the Unicorn voluntary blood donation station could provide him with a continuous stream of deduction points. Adding the phoenix 3 months from now, it was a huge profit. After leaving a spatiotemporal mark here to ensure he wouldn't lose track of the phoenix again, Charles turned and walked out of the Forbidden Forest. At this time, Hagrid was still sleeping soundly under the effect of the stunning spell Charles had cast earlier. Charles also casually used his mithril wand to cast Legilimency on him. He didn't deliberately change anything, only deleted some of Hagrid's memories from before he fell unconscious. In Hagrid's view, the trip to the Forbidden Forest with Charles went smoothly, his plan had succeeded, and everything was perfect. As for falling asleep, it was just a sudden wave of drowsiness, a quick nap. After Charles finished modifying Hagrid's memories, he tapped Hagrid with his wand, and Hagrid opened his eyes in confusion. "Did I just fall asleep? Merlin's beard, I shouldn't have slept for long, right? That was such good sleep quality just now, I haven't slept so peacefully in a long time." However, Hagrid's focus quickly shifted from his sleep quality. He remembered that his plan to scare Charles seemed to have succeeded. But Hagrid couldn't really feel happy, because Charles' earlier words about Dumbledore were still flashing in his mind. The image of Dumbledore, which was perfect in his heart, seemed to be uncontrollably developing cracks, revealing a deep, dark color beneath. Hagrid tried his best not to think about these things, but the more he did, the more some details from over the years surfaced in his mind, making him feel low and gloomy. After taking Charles out of the Forbidden Forest, Hagrid returned to his hut in a dejected mood. Charles looked at Hagrid's retreating figure and shook his head. He didn't care much about Dumbledore's image in the hearts of the Order of the Phoenix members. Mentioning a few things to Hagrid was just on a whim. As for whether the Order of the Phoenix members would continue to be manipulated or willingly serve as Dumbledore's pawns, Charles wasn't concerned. He returned to his room. Since the whereabouts of the Paradise Phoenix had been confirmed, he would be able to obtain its bloodline and complete the magical animagus transformation in 3 months. Before that, he needed to quickly sort out the reversion potion to increase the Fluffy's fluffy concentration and complete his second magical animagus. In his previous dealings with Snape, Charles had obtained almost all of Snape's potions knowledge. Although he still lacked some muscle memory and certainly wasn't as good as Snape himself at brewing potions, in terms of theoretical operation, he was almost on par with Snape. With the theoretical foundation of a potions master, it might take years of experimentation to actually brew a never-before-seen potion like the reversion potion, but it wasn't difficult to come up with a few theoretically feasible ideas. After racking his brain all night, Charles had several ideas. Although it might take a potions master a lifetime to go from theory to practice. But for Charles, who possessed Deep Blue, a miracle was just a moment away. Deep Blue, starting from these theoretical ideas, deduce the formula for the reversion potion for me. Instantly, 100,000 deduction points were deducted. It was as if countless Charles in parallel worlds began adding bricks and mortar along the theoretical routes, with various attempts being made at an astonishing speed. Theoretical routes were rejected one by one, but at the same time, new routes were extended. In just a moment, among the crisscrossing, star-like ideas, one idea shone brightly. It was the feasible one deduced by Deep Blue. But the many potion ingredients used in this idea made Charles gasp. Expensive and rare were a given, but more than half of them were ingredients from the Middle Ages, and some even from ancient times. Charles estimated that even searching the entire wizarding world might not yield enough ingredients to brew such a potion. After shaking his head, Charles whispered, "Second deduction, use materials currently available in the wizarding world as substitutes." Continue, third deduction. Fourth deduction, further increase the success rate of reversion. Meanwhile, Lucius Malfoy also ended this terrifying night and returned to Malfoy Manor with a pale face. His wife, Natasha, saw Lucius's face and the bloodstains on his body and was immediately startled. "Lucius? You're injured. What happened? Didn't you go to teach that little mudblood a lesson? Natasha's eyes widened. He dared to lay a hand on even you. I'll write to the other members of the Board of Governors right away. We'll initiate further punishment against him tomorrow. We can expel him. Unexpectedly, as soon as she said this, Lucius, who had never shown Natasha a stern face before, was immediately startled and then angrily rebuked her. Shut up. Take that word back. You are never to use it again, especially towards that person. Natasha stared blankly at Lucius, as if she didn't know what had happened. Lucius gave a bitter smile and waved his hand. Don't ask about the specifics. Even if you ask, I wouldn't dare to say. If I say something I shouldn't, I'm truly afraid our entire family will be wiped out tomorrow. All I can tell you is, it was too terrifying. From now on, remember to respectfully address that person as Lord Charles Evans. In front of him, our Malfoy family is nothing more than ants that can be crushed at will. Don't think about revenge anymore. It's good enough if we can survive by being his dogs. Then, Lucius, dragging his weary body, came to Draco's room in Malfoy Manor. Draco had previously been sent from Hogwarts to St. Mungo's Hospital and then brought back to the manor to recuperate. Seeing Lucius enter, Draco's eyes showed excitement. He had already learned from his mother that tonight was Charles' trip to the Forbidden Forest, and Lucius would go to make him pay a price he would never forget, to avenge Draco and Snape. In Draco's opinion, his father, Lucius Malfoy, was an omnipotent being. Since he had made a promise to him, he would definitely be able to fulfill it. Father, is that little mudblood dead already? Godfather died, all because of that little mudblood. He deserves to die. Before the excited words could finish, a crisp slap immediately rang out. Draco covered his face in disbelief, looking at the expressionless Lucius. Father? Lucius sighed. Remember this slap, Draco, and let your mind wake up from unrealistic fantasies. I couldn't deal with Charles. I failed, a complete and utter failure. It was just a little bit away. If I weren't still useful to him, I would have died today. He would have come to Malfoy Manor without mercy, killed your mother and you with the most cruel methods, and made the Malfoy surname completely disappear from the wizarding world. So Draco, don't harbor any more delusions, and don't provoke Charles Evans again. Treat him with respect, the way Crabbe and Goyle treat you, treat Charles that way. From now on, the Malfoy family will be Charles' dogs. Draco's head buzzed, and he showed an expression of disbelief. He found it hard to imagine that such humble words would come from his elegant and noble father's mouth. Draco became agitated. Be Charles' dog? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Father, are you confused? What are you saying? Draco's face turned red, and he shouted loudly. I know, Father, you serve the Black Magic Lord. I've known all this for a long time. Charles Evans, he can't possibly be stronger than the Black Magic Lord, can he? How could he make you serve him like this? Lucius looked coldly at Draco, pulled up his sleeve, and revealed his dark mark to Draco. Oh, you know, do you? It seems you are a little more sensible than I thought. But since you know about the Black Magic Lord, I'll tell you clearly, Draco. It is precisely because I served the Black Magic Lord that I didn't harbor any luck/chance and decided to bring the Malfoys to be Lord Charles' dogs. As your father, as the current head of the Malfoy family, I can guarantee you with my soul, and you must remember this firmly with your soul. Charles Evans, this little wizard, he is more terrifying than the Black Magic Lord. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 109 Deduction complete. Ancient Descent. I'm going to be so high. In the room, Charles closed his eyes, countless potion knowledge surging in his mind. Using potions to revert the bloodline of magical creatures to their ancient forms was a topic that no potion master in the wizarding world dared to touch. But now, in a short time, not only did Charles have a formed idea in his mind, but this idea itself was constantly sublimating, and its feasibility was increasing every second, until Deep Blue's prompt sounded. For derivations of the reversion potion formula completed, host has obtained the perfected three-headed dog reversion potion formula. This formula completely uses potion ingredients from the recent ancient era onwards, replacing materials from the ancient and medieval eras, while significantly increasing the success rate of reversion for three-headed dogs. After drinking this potion, there is a high probability that the three-headed dog's bloodline will revert, gaining the characteristics of Fluffy. At this moment, Charles also suddenly opened his eyes, his gaze filled with fervent excitement. It's done. The legendary Fluffy was in existence, active at least at the boundary between the medieval and ancient eras. The most powerful Fluffy even left its name among the gods of the ancient era. This race was no less inferior to ancient dragons, and the boost it would bring to him was imaginable. What was particularly important was that Fluffy lived in the legendary underworld and was naturally skilled in death-related magic. Its breath was instantly fatal, and its venom could pollute the land and even poison demigods in legendary epics. Perhaps the power of its magic was not as vast and boundless as that of ancient dragons, but in terms of lethality, it was completely not inferior. Especially, it could bring Charles resistance to instant death magic and various negative magic, as well as super strong physical regeneration ability, which could take Charles' life-saving ability to the next level. After taking a deep breath, Charles waved his wand and, through the Ministry of Magic's reimbursement agreement, purchased the potion ingredients he needed. As for some extremely rare ingredients, he also sent a message to Lucius through the time-space mark he had left on him, asking the Malfoy family to look for them in their noble collection. After doing all this, Charles stretched lazily with a relaxed expression and walked towards the Hufflepuff common room. In the common room, the aftermath of Charles' earlier bullying of Snape and standing up for Hufflepuff had finally dissipated, and the little badgers of all grades had returned to their normal study life. Cedric Diggory was waving his wand in the common room, distributing plates of snacks made in the small kitchen to everyone present, while also occasionally encouraging the first-year little badgers who looked a bit troubled by their coursework. "Keep it up, we Hufflepuff are the strongest. See Charles? He's the strongest first year in Hogwarts history, and he's also a genius from our Hufflepuff. You can definitely do it too." While the young wizards were greatly encouraged, they were also excitedly discussing the flying lesson they had just finished. "Did you get your broom up?" "My broom was so disobedient, I almost lost my voice shouting and it still wouldn't get up. I only managed to ride the broom and fly for a little while near the end. Oh my goodness, it was so exciting, but the feeling was also so wonderful. I heard that over in Gryffindor, Harry Potter flew up as soon as he got on the broom, flying so well that the professor praised him and even made an exception to let him join the Quidditch team as a seeker in his first year. The pressure for this year's Quidditch Cup feels immense, but we have Cedric in Hufflepuff, so we definitely have hope. As for the House Cup, Charles added a full 400 points for us, and all the points Snape deducted have been added back. We have more points than the other three houses combined. This year is the most hopeful year." Among the young wizards, Hannah was also lost in thought when she heard Charles' name mentioned from time to time. She hadn't seen Charles for several days, and she heard that Charles had even gone to the Forbidden Forest. She wondered how he was doing now. After coming back to her senses, Hannah shook her head, her pigtail swaying. She bit her lip lightly and focused her attention on the essay in front of her, writing seriously. Charles' gaze swept over everything in the common room, and a sense of realization dawned on him. It turned out that he had been enrolled for over a week without realizing it, and flying lessons had already started. Although in this life, due to his influence, Malfoy was still lying in bed and hadn't gotten into a fight with Harry during the flying lesson, it seemed that Dumbledore hadn't neglected the training of the Savior and still made an exception for Harry Potter to become the Seeker. This plot from his previous life flashed through his mind, then quickly dissipated. It was just child's play. What was the point of getting involved? He had already seen this plot countless times in his previous life. Did he need to see it again? Charles took a step and walked out of the common room, maintaining his disillusionment charm, and walked towards the restricted section. He didn't intend to interfere too much with the lives of the Hufflepuff little badgers. He truly couldn't bring himself to blend in with a group of innocent and naive children. Whether it was in terms of ability or ideas, they were not from the same world. It was better to maintain a good distance than to not get along. Entering the library, Charles saw another familiar figure. Hermione Granger was here, engrossed in reading several large books. Charles glanced at them and found that they were works on transfiguration. A hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. He remembered that in the plot he had seen in his previous life, Hermione's talent in transfiguration was average. He hadn't expected her to be struggling with transfiguration now. Was it due to his influence? That's right, after all, Charles is most famous for his transfiguration among the people at Hogwarts, and transfiguration is also a specialty of Gryffindor. It seems Hermione doesn't want to lose to him in this area. Shaking his head, Charles gave a look like he was watching a child, and without disturbing Hermione, he walked straight towards the depths of the restricted section. As usual, he continued to browse through the various large books in the restricted section, filling them into his memory palace. Don't look at how impressive and smug Charles is in the Forbidden Forest now, but he understands that the reason he can kill indiscriminately, raise Dementors in Azkaban, kill Snape, easily kill Old Crabbe and Old Goyle, and even raise Acromantulas in the Forbidden Forest, is all because of his powerful strength. Strength is everything. Once he becomes complacent, everything he possesses could backfire. Those dark creatures and dark wizards are not easy to deal with. Besides, he is probably already being watched by Dumbledore. If he doesn't want to play that old man's childish games, not having enough strength is absolutely out of the question. As a social animal who had struggled in society in his previous life, the idea that effort leads to reward, which students take for granted, was a kind of grace in Charles' eyes. Not seizing it would be an act against heaven. He focused on flipping through those works, feeling his spirit constantly growing stronger as they were filled into his memory palace. He was so engrossed in this process that he almost forgot the passage of time. When he came back to his senses, he realized that half a day had passed without him noticing. The Ministry of Magic had sent back receipts for the potion ingredients he had ordered, stating that they would be delivered in 2 days. Lucius also said that things were looking good and that he would be able to deliver them to Charles at Hogwarts in 2 days at the latest. At the same time, Lucius also provided Charles with a piece of information. Regarding Charles' request for him to search for information about the Necronomicon, Lucius said that he had asked Old Crabbe and Old Goyle, who had given him the parchment fragments back then, but both said they couldn't remember and would look into it later. When Charles saw these messages, his expression was normal at first. It wasn't until Lucius finally mentioned the matter of the Necronomicon that Charles' gaze suddenly fixed. He immediately sent a mark to Lucius. "Who did you say you asked?" In Malfoy manner, Lucius looked bewildered and confused, not knowing what he had said wrong. He answered truthfully, "Old Crabbe and Old Goyle." The next moment, in Hogwarts, Charles' expression suddenly darkened. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle? Charles had long ago cast mental magic on these 2 idiots, telling them to kill themselves after leaving Hogwarts. With their pathetic mental strength, they hadn't even practiced a clemency, so it was impossible for them to resist the mental magic Charles had cast. Almost 2 days had passed, and they should have died long ago. Where did Lucius get information about the Necronomicon from them? Instantly, Charles strode out of the library and apparat to Malfoy Manor in an empty corner outside Hogwarts Castle. Lucius was still feeling uneasy at the moment, and then he heard a loud bang and saw Charles appear in front of him. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief. Wasn't Charles at Hogwarts? Apparition is forbidden at Hogwarts. Moreover, Malfoy Manor also had anti-apparition magic cast on it. Even the former Snape could only apparate outside the manor. How did Charles get in? Lucius felt a chill in his heart. It seemed that the methods of Lord Charles Evans were even more shocking than he had imagined. He quickly put on a respectful expression. "Lord Charles, what is this?" Charles' expression was cold. "Tell me the details of your conversation with Old Crabbe and Old Goyle. Wasn't there anything unusual about these 2? Lucius was stunned for a moment, not expecting Charles to be here for these 2. He said hesitantly, "There was nothing unusual, they were exactly the same as I usually see them, Lord Charles. What's wrong?" Charles sneered. "Exactly the same? 2 people I killed appeared before you, and they were exactly the same as usual. Heh, that's interesting." Charles gripped his mithril wand and said faintly, "Where are their mansions? Take me there." Lucius gasped at the words. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle were killed by Charles. When did this happen? Was it when he asked them to inform Charles to go to the Forbidden Forest, and Charles killed them? Hiss, this little devil is too terrifying. But then, cold sweat seeped from Lucius's back. If that's the case, who were the 2 people he saw? Knowing something was wrong, Lucius swallowed hard and quickly led Charles towards the mansions of Old Crabbe and Old Goyle. Just like Crabbe and Goyle were close and almost inseparable, the mansions of these 2 families were very close, neighbors right across the street. At this moment, the mansions were brightly lit, looking no different, and laughter occasionally came from inside. Lucius hesitated. "Lord Charles, what's going on?" Charles narrowed his eyes. He couldn't see anything wrong with these 2 mansions with his naked eyes. But with his current mental strength at the medieval level, he could still vaguely sense a strange and cold feeling. Because of this, Charles didn't continue to step forward. Without knowing the situation, he didn't want to put himself in danger. Just then, the curtains of the 2 mansions were pulled open a crack. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle, as if they had some kind of tacit understanding, both poked their heads out from behind the curtains, looking at Charles and Lucius outside the mansions, and showing enthusiastic smiles. Lucius's scalp tingled. He didn't know what was happening, but at this moment, an instinctive fear gripped him, making him almost unable to breathe. Charles also narrowed his eyes. The 2 of them pulled open the curtains almost simultaneously, and even sensed his arrival. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle didn't have such insight. A cold smile appeared on his face. "Interesting." Lucius asked tremblingly. "Lord Charles, what should we do now? Should we go in and take a look?" Charles gave him a speechless look. "Are you an idiot? You don't know anything about the situation, and you want to just go in and look?" Lucius hesitated. "If we don't go in and look, how will we know what's wrong with their house?" Charles raised his wand, his gaze cold. I don't need to know what's wrong with them, I only know that their continued appearance in this world is a mistake. Since it's a mistake, just fix it. The next moment, the mithril wand erupted with light like the sun. After a long time, Charles once again chanted the spell, Eternal Blazing Sun. A ball of light quickly flew out from the tip of the wand, then suddenly expanded, enveloping the two mansions and everyone inside, radiating light and heat like the sun. Cast with Charles' current mental and magical strength, the Eternal Blazing Sun spell truly felt like the sun descending to the mortal world, burning everything, especially those dark things. When the light and heat gradually dissipated, the two mansions had been razed to the ground, and nothing could be seen inside. Seeing this terrifying scene, Lucius swallowed hard, and his eyes looking at Charles were filled with even more fear. There were still servants and some unrelated people inside the mansions, and Charles just razed the two mansions to the ground with one spell. This action was not enough to describe him as a cold-blooded killer. His expression became more and more respectful, and when he left here and returned to Malfoy Manor, his legs were still trembling. Charles also returned to Hogwarts, his expression cold, planning to continue reading in the restricted section. But at this moment, a mocking laugh sounded in his ear. Charles' brows instantly furrowed, and he gripped his mithril wand again. That laugh sounded a little familiar. Dak? Is that you? But there was no response to his questions. A moment later, only Lucius sent a message filled with terror between the lines. Lord Charles. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle, they sent me invitations, inviting you to attend their family's banquets. Charles was stunned for a moment, his expression suddenly becoming serious. The next moment, he operated again, taking Lucius to the outside of the two mansions. The two mansions, which had just been razed to the ground by the Eternal Blazing Sun, now stood as if nothing had happened, still brightly lit as before. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle pulled back the curtains again, smiling at Charles. Across the window, they pointed to the two invitations in Lucius's hand, which stated that Charles and Lucius were invited to the banquet 3 days later. The two seemed to be reminding Charles not to forget the time of the banquet. Lucius was chilled to the bone at this moment, his heart filled with bitterness. What kind of situation was this? How did he end up encountering such a bizarre thing? Charles, after a moment of silence, drew his mithril wand, his expression indifferent, and flicked his wand repeatedly. Eternal Blazing Sun, triple cast. Sun of No Light, triple cast. Orbs of light, some dazzling and others invisible, flew out, unleashing terrifying magic and once again leveling the two mansions. This time, Charles didn't stop even after reaching the location, still waving his wand as if to destroy the land beneath the two mansions as well. After more than 10 minutes, under the scorching heat of endless light, the land beneath the mansions was baked into glass. No creature could possibly survive under such conditions. Charles then sneered, flicked his hand, burning the two invitations in Lucius's hand to ashes, and turned to leave. But the next moment, Lucius, who had breathed a sigh of relief and was preparing to leave with Charles, suddenly stiffened, his voice trembling. Charles, Lord Charles. Charles turned around abruptly, and then saw the two mansions standing perfectly intact in the distance again. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle were still watching Charles and smiling from their original positions. However, their smiles were now clearly tinged with mockery and malice. They pointed to Lucius's hand, and the two invitations that had been burned to ashes reappeared. Lucius was almost scared to death, feeling that what he held in his hand was not an invitation, but a death warrant. Charles looked at Old Crabbe and Old Goyle, who were laughing, and suddenly he also smiled. He slowly grinned, picked up the two invitations, and swallowed them little by little. Gulp. Charles swallowed the two invitations, licked his lips, and looked at the two people inside the mansion. A banquet, is it? All right, I like banquets. It's just that my appetite is a bit big, so don't disappoint me. You'll have to prepare more food, otherwise I might even eat the hosts. You two love to laugh so much, I hope you can still laugh when the time comes. Old Crabbe and Old Goyle were stunned for a moment, then the curve of their mouths widened even further, letting out silent, wild laughter, as if mocking Charles' arrogance. Charles didn't bother to pay attention to them anymore and turned to leave with Lucius. Lucius's face was pale. Lord Charles, what was that thing? Charles shook his head, about to speak, but his steps suddenly halted. In his ear, he heard the mocking laughter from Dak again. The laughter was getting louder and louder. How is it, Charles, my friend? You've already begun to touch the ancient. I told you, the era of the old ones will eventually return, and you are the key that opens the door. Although I don't know what method you used to cause me so much trouble, it's useless, completely useless. The awakening of the old ones is irreversible. This is the end of all destiny. No matter how you try to stop it, it's futile, like a small stone stuck in a gear. Do you think you can stop the gears of destiny? No, that will only create more and more distortions centered around you, more and more power, to crush you and make the gears turn again. See? This is just the tip of the iceberg of ancient horrors. Running is useless. More and more things like this will happen, constantly surrounding you. Afraid? Scared? Useless, all useless. Ancient madness is your only destination. But at this moment, Charles also smiled, his eyes burning, revealing bottomless greed and fervor. Afraid? Scared? Dak, my old friend, why would I be afraid? I'm happy, so happy I could burst. Food, it's all food, all nourishment. I thought you'd hide in the dream lie and never come out again. I didn't expect such a good thing to happen, that something like this would actively contact me. Do you know how happy I am? The feeling of tentacles wriggling in my mouth, then being bitten off and bursting with juice, the madness flowing down my throat, what kind of satisfaction that brings. A fanatical expression appeared on Charles' face, even flushed with excitement. It's great, it's really great. I thought I'd spend a boring time studying at Hogwarts, Dak. You guys really know how to entertain me. At this moment, Lucius, who was standing nearby, was so scared his legs turned to jelly. He couldn't hear the insane words of Dak whispering in Charles' ear. From beginning to end, he could only see Charles muttering excitedly as if he were mad. Just as Lucius was wondering if he should make a quick escape, Charles recovered from his ecstasy and glanced at Lucius. Lucius was almost in tears. If Charles had gone mad, he really wouldn't know what to do about this bizarre situation. Lord Charles, what should we do now? Charles said indifferently. What to do? It doesn't matter to me. I can't die and I can't go mad. But you're in trouble for being dragged into this. Want to live with your sanity intact? Then quickly gather all the potion ingredients I need before the feast of those two ghosts begins. Lucius nodded tremblingly. Next, he vividly demonstrated the potential a person can unleash when facing a life-or-death crisis. The Malfoy family's connections and financial resources were fully mobilized. The next day, the rarest ingredients for the reversion potion arrived at Hogwarts along with the Ministry of Magic's cargo boxes. Charles looked at the assembled potion ingredients, a hint of anticipation on his face. Reversion potion, brewing begins. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 110 Potion Dispute, Dumbledore, you'll regret this. Brewing a potion? In the Hufflepuff head of house office, Professor Sprout looked at Charles in surprise. She hadn't expected that shortly after returning from the Forbidden Forest, Charles would come to her office asking to borrow a cauldron and a suitable classroom for brewing potions. Of course, Hufflepuff House wasn't short on cauldrons and similar items. After all, dealing with cultivating herbs inevitably involved brewing potions. Professor Sprout herself was skilled at brewing potions, although not as good as Snape. She was far better than ordinary wizards. What surprised her was that besides specializing in transfiguration and charms, Charles was also dabbling in potions. Is this what a genius is like? They really don't leave any room for ordinary people to live. Professor Sprout sighed inwardly for a moment, then readily agreed to Charles' request. Not only that, she also dug out an old cauldron from the display cabinet in the Hufflepuff common room. Charles looked at the cauldron, a strange look in his eyes. He didn't look down on the cauldron just because it was old. Firstly, Professor Sprout wouldn't give him a useless cauldron, and secondly, Charles could sense a peculiar magical power emanating from it. Professor Sprout then spoke with a hint of pride. This cauldron was donated by a potions master from our house's history. Don't look at how Snape is the most famous potions master at Hogwarts in recent years. In reality, the house that has produced the most potions masters is us, Hufflepuff. This cauldron was used extensively for brewing Amortentia, so it has absorbed some of its characteristics. It can slightly increase the success rate when brewing a potion for the first time. It's the best cauldron I could find. Come, I'll find you the best potions classroom too. You can brew your potion there. A look of gratitude appeared on Charles' face. Perhaps Professor Sprout's strength was insignificant to him now, and the subject she specialized in couldn't directly increase his power, but she was definitely the most caring among the many professors at Hogwarts. Whatever request he made, Professor Sprout would do her best to help him achieve it. Just telling him about the Phoenix before, he already owed her a huge debt of gratitude. Now, specifically finding him a cauldron used by a potions master, this favor was growing larger and larger. Charles hesitated, wanting to speak, while Professor Sprout smiled. Charles, I know you're different from ordinary children. I don't treat you like a child at all. Your way of thinking and your style of handling things are more like an adult's. Perhaps this is what a genius is. But no matter what, you are a Hufflepuff student, and possibly the most outstanding student Hufflepuff, or even Hogwarts, has ever had. It is my responsibility as head of house to nurture you well, without needing any reward. If you feel you owe me, then when you have the ability, take good care of Hufflepuff. Sprout said half-jokingly. Ha ha ha, actually, even though I usually don't compete with the world, I really want Hufflepuff to dominate the House Cup. It's a pity I don't have a backer like Snape. Charles also smiled upon hearing this, his heart filled with emotion. After helping him so much, her only request was for him to help Hufflepuff win a few more House Cups. This head of house was truly, even if it was just to repay the favor, Charles was determined to win the House Cup for Hufflepuff. Even if Dumbledore, the old busybody, wanted to cheat for the savior, Charles wouldn't mind challenging him again. Soon, Charles followed Professor Sprout to a potions classroom used by older students. Professor Sprout said she had reserved the classroom for a full 6 hours, so Charles could brew his potion there with peace of mind. After Professor Sprout left, Charles waved his wand again, adding several protective charms to the classroom. Although done casually, even if older students gave it their all, they wouldn't be able to break in. After doing this, Charles took out the ingredients for the reversion potion and began to process them with full concentration. Meanwhile, in another potions classroom, the first-year Gryffindors and Slytherins were tense, glaring at each other. Although they didn't know about Snape's death, it was common knowledge that Snape had been sent to Azkaban. It would be strange if Gryffindor and Slytherin didn't get into an argument over this matter when they met in this potions class. However, just as things were getting tense, a chubby, bald old man walked in, smiling and sighing. The familiar smell of the classroom, the first-year Hogwarts students are still so energetic. Beside him, Dumbledore also smiled and introduced him to the students in the class. This is Professor Slughorn, the former head of Slytherin, who is temporarily taking over as the potions professor. He is a famous potions master, with an excellent reputation. You will benefit greatly from studying with him. After Dumbledore left, Slughorn's gaze swept across the classroom. As his gaze fell upon Harry Potter, his eyes immediately lit up. Although he was from Slytherin, he was a rare head of house who held no prejudice regarding blood status. On the contrary, he was particularly interested in talented individuals. When he was still teaching at Hogwarts, he dedicated himself to recruiting various talents. Those former students had now become his connections in high society. Now, invited back to Hogwarts by Dumbledore, Slughorn's return was partly because he couldn't stand the current state of Slytherin House and wanted to restore its glory, and partly because of Harry Potter. If he could get the famous boy who lived to join his slug club, it would be quite glorious, enough to be a topic of conversation for the next 10 years. Therefore, in this first class, Slughorn decided to show off his skills and let everyone see how capable he was. It must be said that compared to Snape, who was accustomed to suppressing students, Slughorn's teaching level was more than 2 or 3 steps higher. Not only could he explain the principles of potions in a simple yet profound way, but he also made it interesting, captivating even the Gryffindor lions who held prejudices against Slytherin House. Harry Potter was also engrossed. In this life, because Charles had brutally beaten Snape on the first day of school, Harry was not subjected to Snape's constant difficult treatment/harassment in potions class as he was in the original story. Therefore, Harry didn't feel as resistant to potions as he did in the original story. Instead, he found it quite interesting. Children are like that. Once they become interested in something, they learn with extraordinary speed. Furthermore, Harry Potter's mother, Lily, was a potions genius highly praised by Slughorn back in the day. It was unlikely that Harry Potter didn't inherit Lily's potions talent. It was just that in the original story, he was suppressed too much by Snape and was extremely resistant to potions, so even with talent, he couldn't display it. Now, under Slughorn's guidance, Harry Potter's talent in potions also began to show. Even the knowledgeable Hermione, in practical operations, was overshadowed by Harry. A few small maneuvers he performed while preparing the potion for boils made Slughorn's eyes light up, and he loudly awarded points to Gryffindor. Halfway through the class, almost all the students had completed the potion for boils. Slughorn said with a smile, "Very good, it seems I'm still sharp. To be honest, when I first came, I was a little worried about not being able to handle the children nowadays. Well done, you are all talented, especially Mr. Potter, you are simply a potions genius." Amidst the happy expressions of the little lions and little snakes, Slughorn beckoned to them. "Given your excellent performance in this class, we still have plenty of time. Come on, follow me, let Professor Me show you a trick, let you see what high-level potions look like." He drew out his tone and said, "I will brew before you one of the most magical, most wonderful, and most difficult potions, Amortentia." Without Slughorn needing to say more, the know-it-all Hermione immediately exclaimed the effect of Amortentia. Hearing that this potion had the effect of enhancing luck and making everything go smoothly, the students all gasped in surprise. Ron in the crowd, hearing the price of amortentia, was also dumbfounded, his eyes showing a look of longing. The price of a small bottle of amortentia might be his 7 years of tuition and living expenses at Hogwarts. Amidst the students' gasps, Slughorn couldn't hide his pride and then beckoned the students to follow him upstairs. Brewing amortentia requires a spacious classroom. Let's go, we'll go to the advanced potions classroom. Soon, Slughorn led everyone to the door of a classroom. This is the best potions classroom at Hogwarts. I used to brew potions here all the time. Someone is using it? Slughorn frowned, only to find that this potions classroom was already occupied and had been booked for 6 hours. Upon seeing the name of the person who booked it, Slughorn's frown deepened. Charles Evans? Of course, this name was like thunder in his ears. Beating up the head of Slytherin on the first day of school and challenging Dumbledore, such a student was unprecedented in Hogwarts' 1000-year history. However, as the former head of Slytherin, it was impossible for Slughorn to feel happy seeing this name. At the same time, Slughorn felt a bit surprised. Charles is using the advanced potions classroom. Is he brewing potions? Isn't he specialized in transfiguration and charms? Why is he getting into potions? Does he also have research in potions? But after a moment, Slughorn subconsciously shook his head, denying his own thoughts. Potions is a particularly profound subject, and it has nothing to do with wands or spells. It also requires a lot of practical experience. No matter how talented Charles was, without the accumulation of time, it would be difficult to reach the advanced levels of potions, let alone compare with a potions master like Slughorn who could brew amortentia. Therefore, after a moment of hesitation, a strange look flashed in Slughorn's eyes, and he knocked on the classroom door. He wanted to see what kind of potion Charles was brewing inside. At this time, the first-year Gryffindors and Slytherins also knew that Charles was brewing a potion inside. They also began to discuss in low voices in surprise. Can Charles also brew potions? He's using the advanced potions classroom. What kind of potion is he brewing? Upon hearing this, the little snakes instinctively felt resistant. Charles had already caused Slytherin House to lose face, making it difficult for them to hold their heads high during this time. Just when Professor Slughorn arrived, making them feel a sense of vindication, it turned out Charles could also brew potions. This made them instinctively start denying it. Don't be ridiculous. If you said Charles had research in some spellcasting field, I wouldn't find it strange. But brewing potions doesn't require waving a wand. A master of transfiguration and a master of potions are completely different fields. Charles is probably just researching some basic potions, and he needs to occupy a potions classroom for that? It's too wasteful. He should give it up for Professor Slughorn. The little snakes started discussing in low voices. Over on the Gryffindor side, Hermione's face flushed at this. Don't judge Charles with your narrow perspectives. Charles has always surpassed the imagination of ordinary people. But Ron, for once, agreed with the little snake's words. Even though the Slytherins are bad, what they said makes sense. Charles can't have everything, can he? He's already so powerful, and he can also brew potions? That's just too unfair. Ron really didn't want to believe what Hermione said, that everything Charles did was beyond imagination. He could already accept that Charles was exceptionally strong, and he couldn't even feel jealous, as the gap was too large. But potions didn't require waving a wand, so Charles might not necessarily be better than him. If Charles also had deep expertise in potions, which could earn huge profits, then Ron truly couldn't accept it. Harry, standing nearby, also nodded imperceptibly. He had just been praised by Slughorn as a potions genius. This was the first time in Harry's life that he had been affirmed. Harry secretly hoped that he could be stronger than Charles in potions. Just as everyone was arguing, Professor Slughorn tapped his wand and sent a message inside. Charles, I am the new potions professor, Slughorn. I see you are using the potions classroom. May I join you? Ahem, if you have any questions about potions, I'd be happy to answer them. Charles, who was preparing ingredients, heard the voice and showed impatience in his eyes. Fortunately, he was only preparing the ingredients and hadn't started brewing the potion yet, otherwise, it was very likely that complications would arise because of this, possibly even wasting a precious ingredient. A moment later, Charles opened the door to the potions classroom and looked coldly at Slughorn at the entrance. Without waiting for Slughorn to speak, Charles said coldly, "Has no one taught you to be quiet when someone else is brewing potions?" Slughorn was stunned for a moment, not expecting Charles to be so impolite to him. In his opinion, Charles was still a beginner in potions and must have encountered many problems. He certainly wouldn't miss the opportunity to consult a potions master like himself. He could also use this opportunity to slightly salvage the face Slytherin House had lost due to Snape's defeat. He quickly said, Charles, you might not know much about the field of potions yet. You might not know me, I am Slughorn. Before he finished speaking, Charles directly interrupted him. I've heard of you, but not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry can be someone I consult. If you dare to disturb me again, I'll send you to join Snape. Immediately, Charles directly closed the door and specifically added a few more powerful protective spells. As for what the students and Slughorn outside would think, what did he care? Only the weak needed to consider what others thought. Now, the reversion potion was his top priority, everything else had to wait. If Slughorn hadn't actually caused him any loss, Charles wouldn't have let him off so easily for disturbing him. As Charles continued to focus on the reversion potion, Slughorn's face outside turned pale and then green. The little snakes were also furious. What is he being arrogant about? The professor kindly offered to guide him, and not only does he not appreciate it, but he's also so rude to the professor. He's simply too arrogant. Even some of the little lions now agreed with the little snake's words. Ron even speculated with a hint of suspicion. Maybe geniuses are all so arrogant, thinking they are omnipotent. Perhaps he thinks he's stronger than a potions master. But I think it's more likely that Charles ran into trouble and didn't want to be guided, afraid of losing face, which is why he got anxious. Although Harry didn't say anything when he heard this, he felt a sense of schadenfreude and relief in his heart. It seems that Charles might be really average in the field of potions, and perhaps I am indeed better than him. Only Hermione's face flushed as she defended him. Charles usually isn't this rude. He must be brewing some very important potion and was disturbed, which is why he acted like that. However, except for Hermione, no one believed that Charles, a beginner in potions, could brew any important potion. Slughorn's expression returned to normal at this moment, and he said with a hint of deeper meaning, "It seems Miss Granger knows Mr. Evans very well. Then let's wait and see what potion Mr. Evans can brew." But speaking of which, he booked 6 hours for brewing potions. I don't recall any potion in the beginner or intermediate potions textbooks that requires that much time. Come, let me take you to the classroom next door to observe the brewing of Amortentia. Although this amount of time will only allow us to complete the first half of the preparation work, I guarantee you won't regret it. Immediately, Slughorn led everyone into the potions classroom next door. 3 full hours later, the dazzled students filed out of the classroom, their faces showing obvious excitement. Harry was even more unable to contain his excitement and said, "Did you see the way the professor handled the potion ingredients? It was amazing, simply an art. And the process of the professor brewing the potion, precise and elegant. As expected of a potions master, it's incredible." Students like Ron, who had average talent in potions, didn't see as much, but they were eagerly discussing the wonderful smell wafting from the cauldron. Merlin's beard, even the semi-finished product smells so wonderful. I can't imagine how it would feel to drink it. At this moment, everyone looked at the still-closed door of the classroom next door, their gazes quite subtle. Ron said with a hint of mockery, "The professor has already finished the most complex preparation work for Amortentia, so why is Charles still using the classroom? Could it be that he's brewing a potion that's even more difficult than Amortentia?" At this moment, Slughorn also walked out of the classroom and said meaningfully, "That's not impossible, Ron, Mr. Robbie, right? After all, potions is vast and profound. It's quite normal for there to be potions I've never heard of. Perhaps Mr. Evans even researched it himself. Let's leave quickly, so as not to disturb Mr. Evans or make him feel awkward coming out." The little snakes also burst into laughter, and nicknames such as Boastful Charles and Potions Poop Charles came into being. Slughorn's mouth curved up, clearly in a good mood. Soon, in the headmaster's office, Dumbledore also learned about this matter. A smile also appeared on his face. Harry Potter is praised as a potions genius by Slughorn, while Charles is being mocked in potions. That's unexpected news. Dumbledore was originally thinking about how to suppress Charles to highlight Harry Potter's aura as the savior. He didn't expect that a single potions class would achieve his goal. Just then, Professor Sprout walked into the headmaster's office in a huff. "Dumbledore, didn't you hear the names the Slytherin students are calling Charles? How can you let them attack Charles like that?" Dumbledore, at this moment, showed a look of helplessness. "Professor Sprout, it's just children playing a joke. Haven't we all gone through this stage? I believe this matter will pass quickly. Also, I think it's good for Charles to understand that a person's energy is limited and he can't achieve great things in all areas. This is also beneficial for his growth." Before he finished speaking, Professor Sprout showed a look of disappointment. "Being ridiculed like this is beneficial for growth? Dumbledore, you really have your own way of thinking. Fine, if you won't do anything, just know that you will regret it." Immediately, Professor Sprout left in a hurry. She still needed to comfort the little badgers who were indignant because Charles had been insulted. A few hours later, in the advanced potions classroom, Charles looked at the boiling blood-colored potion in the cauldron before him and took a deep breath. The smell emanating from this potion seemed to be able to trigger changes in the magic deep within his bloodline, which completely matched the characteristics of the reversion potion he had deduced through Deep Blue. Joy appeared in Charles' eyes. The reversion potion is a success. His face showed fervor and anticipation. Once the reversion potion is successful, Fluffy the three-headed dog will likely awaken the characteristics of a Fluffy. My second animagus form, Fluffy, is coming. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description.
Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Also, you can request any novel so I can turn into audiobooks. Check out our Patreon for more details.